Chapter 209. Phew. Hearing the referee's announcement, Wu Qian and the others, who had come to cheer for Zhou Jingquan, finally spat out the tension and worry in their hearts. Although they had little contact with martial arts and had not watched much of the competition between body refining and Danqi realm, the momentum that Zhou Jingquan had just shown and the horror that was beyond the limits of the human body were clearly reflected in their minds, making them unconsciously feel scared, fearful, and uneasy. It was like a person who didn't know how fierce and terrible a tiger was, but when he really met it, he would have the most intuitive feeling. When the pressure was relieved, they were delighted. They raised their hands and cheered for the victory, forgetting that they were in someone else's dojo and that girls should be reserved. Lin Ke was so handsome and charming. Lu Qing had a girlfriend, but did he have one? Similar thoughts flashed through the minds of Wu Qian's roommates. Beside them, Zhao Chang, Qiu Zhigao, and the others were also enjoying the taste of victory. The pressure of professional 8th pin in Dan State was so suffocating. Listening to the shouts in the spacious and quiet atmosphere, Zhou Jingquan patted his black martial arts suit, turned around leisurely, and walked down the ring unhurriedly, as if he had no intention of seizing the time at all. If he walked too fast, his movements would be unsightly. Thinking of this, he felt his calves were twitching and his thigh muscles were trembling. His body was showing signs of reaching its limit, so he had to walk slowly to maintain his elegant and calm demeanor. As for whether this would give Lin Ke a chance to recover, he was calm and not worried, because the focus was not on him, but on senior sister Joie. The distance he needed to walk down the arena was much less than the distance she needed to walk from the home team's seat to the arena. As long as he finished the stone steps before she ran, it wouldn't be a delay. In the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, after hearing the cheers of Sun Jian, Li Mao, and the others, Yan Zhika finally relaxed her tense body and the lines of her pursed lips softened. She leaned towards Lu Cheng and whispered, "I thought my brother would lose just now." There was a little fear in her voice that couldn't be concealed. Zhou Jingquan's 3 consecutive strikes seemed to be able to crush any professional 9th pin fighter. Under his clothes, Lu Cheng held the girl's hand and smiled. "I was scared too." Yan Zhika's eyes sparkled as she looked at the figure standing in the ring. She could not believe her own judgment and asked, "What do you think my brother can do in this round?" "Your brother isn't a true Dan Stage Mighty One yet. He has imitated the outburst of a Dan Stage Mighty One twice in a row. Come, to push the meteor force, the burden is definitely not small." There were some words that he couldn't think of to express at the moment, so he simply used the written language. And he also withstood Zhou Jingquan's continuous outbursts. I guess he's almost at his limit. What he was implying was that he shouldn't expect his brother-in-law to exhaust Zhuo Yanjun, or even defeat her. Yan Zhika showed her white teeth and bit her lower lip. Then she sighed, "I think so too." "Humph, you can't even say something nice to comfort me. Something nice to listen to?" Lu Qing smiled and said, "We've already won 2 rounds. Even if your brother didn't exhaust Zhuo Yanjun, and even if senior Sun Jian didn't defy the heavens, we only lost 2 to 3. When we return to our school, we still have a chance." Speaking up to this point, he paused, and said without arrogance or inferiority, "After suffering this loss and knowing that Hou Yu has such a supernatural ability, I won't be so affected anymore, and I won't be so tired when facing Zhou Jingquan. At that time, I'll be able to exhaust him even more, and even force out his continuous outbursts in advance, so that your brother can deal with him more easily and play the last round better. We have hoped to win 3-1 and turn the tables." Looking at her boyfriend's steady and high-spirited face and listening to his confident and not arrogant words, Yan Zhika's eyes sparkled. She unconsciously raised the corner of her mouth and nodded hard. In the fan forum, Eternal Nightfall, Yan Shaoling said, touching chin expression, "I suddenly feel that Lin Ke is not bad. He looks quite clean and good-looking. He also has a good temperament. Why doesn't he have a fan forum?" "Yeah, although I like my idol more, I have to admit that Lin Ke is better looking than him." Brahman also sent a puzzled emoji. Unparalleled Dragon King replied, "I also feel strange. Logically speaking, girls like you should prefer handsome and cool guys like Lin Quebec." And in the previous live broadcast interview, he showed a lot of character. It's very, very indescribable. It's a little cute, right? Little dragon, I know you want to say this. Don't hide your girly heart. Yan Xiaoling sent a funny emoji. To be honest, I'm a masochist. I really like this kind of cool and indifferent guy. But who asked me to meet Lu Qing first? I thought of that saying, once you meet Lu Qing, you'll regret it for life. What? You're a masochist? I don't know you. I don't have a son like you. Brahman said with a shocked emoji. Unparalleled Dragon King wiped his cold sweat. Little Nightfall, you're the most self-deprecating girl I've ever seen. After that, he added, I think the reason why Lu Qing has a fan forum is because he created too many miracles in the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. In the words of some novels, people pay more attention to him because he has the color of a legend. And after a long time, people will either hate him or become fans. I'm just kidding. Yan Xiaoling spread her hands helplessly. Little dragon, what you said makes sense this time. I was influenced by Lu Qing's crazy momentum when he defeated a professional 9th pin fighter. That's why I looked up his previous information. I was fascinated by him bit by bit. At this time, all the good names are taken by dogs, said, who says no one likes Lin Ke? I like him. But I prefer him and Lu Qing as a couple. So it's better to stay here, haha. The other female ID, Nia Chichi, smiled and said, in my opinion, the reason why Lu Qing has a forum is mostly because of persevering fans like you, Little Nightfall. I quite like Lin Ke too. I thought of setting up a private forum for him, but I thought that after it was set up, only 1 or 2 people would chat in it. How boring would that be? Sigh, only you and Fan could persevere. Lu Qing already had hundreds of fans in the forum, but only 20 or so showed up during the competition. Less than 10 familiar faces were spamming the forum. It could be seen how difficult it was for a martial artist of a lower rank to gather fans. Many people might have been interested in the forum at that time, but soon forgot about it afterwards. Hey, I was praised. I'm embarrassed, Yan Xiaoling sent a blushing emoji. Brahman said excitedly, Little Nightfall, why don't you help Lin Ke to create a fan forum? We'll help you. Sob sob sob, I want to too, but I'm a loyal child. Forget it. How about I go in a sock puppet? Yan Xiaoling replied without any sense of shame. Forget it. Let's leave it to Lin Ke's true fans. Unparalleled Dragon King suggested. Yan Xiaoling nodded and said, that's true. Little dragon, do you think Songqing University can win today? Damn, why are you talking about such a frivolous topic at such a serious time? Unparalleled Dragon King complained crazily, and then said, it depends on how much energy Lin Ke has left. If he can give Zhui Yanjun a tremor punch, Sun Jian will be easy. If he can't, maybe they will lose 2-3. They still have a chance to make a comeback at home. They played weird today. With the coach's summary, it will be different when the time comes. Yes, I understand. I won't cry if I lose today. Brahman interrupted. In the stands, Yi Yaoting was stunned for a moment. She looked at her companion beside her and asked, Sister Lan, why are you in a daze? Jiang Lan came back to herself and smiled. I'm thinking, if I were to face Brother Zhou at his peak, how confident would I be to not lose under his 3-hit combo? How confident? Yi Yaoting asked curiously. I'm not good at math. I can't figure it out. Jiang Lan rolled her eyes. How could she give a specific number based on her feelings? She thought for a moment and said, anyway, I'll be at a disadvantage. It won't be easy. After the preliminaries, I thought I had a chance to reach 7th pin. Now it seems that I was thinking too much. The ranking event for 6th pin and 7th pin would be expanded to include the combination of several provinces, such as the Southwest. Of course, places with many fighters such as the capital Huahai could hold it alone. As for the high-ranked Dan stage, that is, 4th pin and 5th pin, it would be a national competition. As for the top 3 pins, there were other rules. I thought I was the best among the professional 9th pin fighters. Yi Yaoting complained and made fun of herself. Jiang Lan turned to look at her and said seriously, "You're already at the peak of body refining, and you've been through the preliminaries. It's time for you to take a break and think about the dance stage. Otherwise, even Xiao Yuan will surpass you. He's gained a lot in Guangnan. Maybe within this year or in the first half of next year, he'll be able to reach the dance stage." In the final round of the National University Martial Arts Competition in April, Li Xiaoyuan's Martial Arts Club of Guangnan University made it to the top 4, while Shanbei University, led by Peng Lian, successfully defended its title. Yes. Yi Yaoting nodded with a rare solemn expression. When Zhou Jingquan walked down the last stone step leisurely, Zhui Yanjun was already in front of him. After giving each other a high five, Zhou Jingquan lowered his voice and said gently, "He's almost there. Don't be rash. Be careful of his counterattack." "Okay." Zhui Yanjun took a deep breath, passed Zhou Jingquan, and stepped on the stone step. She was different from most of the disciples of Wenqing school. She also practiced Xianshui swordsmanship derived from Xuanwu true sword, which was quite powerful. She had an unusual devotion to martial arts. Every time she stepped on the arena, she would first express her gratitude to martial arts for changing her life. "I'm an ordinary girl. Except for my pretty name, my looks are ordinary, my personality is ordinary, my family is ordinary, and my IQ is ordinary. According to the normal development, I should go to an ordinary school, do an ordinary job, meet an ordinary boyfriend, experience one or several relationships, and finally step into the hall of marriage and live an ordinary life, just like what my parents showed me. Fortunately, I have the talent for martial arts, and now I can experience a different life." While expressing her gratitude, Zhui Yanjun came to the opposite side of Lin Ke, thinking about Zhou Jingxuan's words and waiting for the match to start. The referee ignored Lin Ke's breathing and raised his right hand. "Begin." Zhui Yanjun immediately moved, avoiding the front. Using her arms as swords, she cut, chopped, pointed, and flicked. She fought very cleverly. Lin Ke stood in place, using his hands, elbows, arms, shoulders, and legs to block. He looked like he was struggling to hold on. Her feet slid, and Zhui Yanjun flashed to Lin Ke's side. Her right arm slashed diagonally, full of strength. At this moment, Lin Ke's face was abnormally red. His back muscles swelled, and his spine squirmed. He forcibly pulled his body to face Zhui Yanjun, avoiding the sword. He stepped forward with his right foot, closing in on his opponent like a meteor. Then he raised his left arm, and his temples bulged. His right fist shot out like a cannonball. This series of moves flowed smoothly. Unexpectedly, Zhui Yanjun only had time to block with her elbow. Bang! The fist hit. Her body shook, and various descriptions of the tremor punch flashed through her mind. She was about to take a deep breath to counteract it, but found that the vibration was so weak that she didn't feel anything. An arrow at the end of its flight, it's hard to penetrate the cloth? Suddenly, Zhui Yanjun thought of one of Junior Zhou's favorite ancient proverbs. With a flick of her right arm, she slashed out horizontally, stopping at the frozen Lin Ke's neck. She saw sweat dripping down his face, and his eyes revealed a look of disappointment and unwillingness. Round 4, Zhui Yanjun wins. The referee announced the result. Lin Ke didn't say anything. He turned around and walked down. His expression didn't change much, but his legs seemed to be heavier. Lu Qing jumped up from his seat and went to him, trying to support him. When he reached Lin Ke, he saw this silent and introverted brother-in-law slightly lower his head. He heard him say with difficulty, "I'm sorry, sorry." Lu Qing was stunned. He didn't know where this "sorry" came from, but he soon felt Lin Ke's stubborn desire to win and unyielding pride. "Last time, after I defeated Wei Xingtian, I fought 2 more rounds to secure victory. I didn't let his desperate efforts go to waste. This time, although he defeated Zhou Jingquan, he didn't have the strength to fight again. So he was unwilling, so he was in pain, so he was sorry. Everyone felt that losing was acceptable, but he didn't. He only had victory in his eyes. This was Lin Ke. Lu Qing reached out and patted Lin Ke's shoulder. He said seriously, "Win it back next time." Chapter 210. Win the next round. Hearing Lu Cheng's words, Lin Ke didn't speak again. He only nodded slightly, but the disappointment and unwillingness in his eyes had faded away. Instead, a faint but absolutely pure desire to fight burned in his eyes. At this time, Sun Jian walked to the two of them and said half-jokingly and half-self-deprecatingly, "I always said that you two would deprive me of the opportunity to fight, but now I really hope that you two won't give me such a chance." If this was a chat on the internet, he would have added a laugh and cry emoji. Lu Cheng was almost amused by him. He deliberately said in a serious tone, "Fight well and enjoy the greeting of a professional ninth pin." Enjoy? Sun Jian suddenly shivered and looked up at Zhui Yanjun, who was neither red nor out of breath. He had the illusion that a frog was about to challenge a poisonous snake. How to fight a professional ninth pin who was almost in perfect condition? This wasn't enjoyment, it was torture. However, if he didn't face a professional ninth pin directly, how could he figure out his own problems? How could he dare to face his own father in the graduation season? He took a breath and reached out his right hand to Lin Quebec. Lin Ke's expression returned to indifference, but he still raised his arm and bumped Sun Jian's right palm. As a psychology student, he knew very well that such ceremonies were to cultivate a sense of community and strengthen cohesion. But he didn't want to expose it and exclude himself. Sun Jian walked past his two companions and went up the stone stairs to the arena. Although he wasn't as nervous as Li Mao, he couldn't help but feel nervous. The gap between him and Zhui Yanjun couldn't be filled by shouting slogans and shouting hot-blooded words. Last year, when Shen Zhanghua challenged Lin Ke, he was already one of the best fighters of amateur first pin. He was so proud of himself that he wanted to take part in the professional ranking event. However, he was utterly defeated. After that, he practiced hard for more than half a year. It was not until the end of last month that he successfully broke through and got the coveted professional ninth pin certificate. Zhui Yanjun was rated as a strong ninth pin, so her strength should be about the same as Lin Ke's from last semester, or even a little bit stronger. But now, Lu Cheng, who wrote amateur third pin and studied amateur second pin, was still a lot weaker than Shen Zhanghua at that time. 1 plus and 1 minus, the gap between them was obvious. "Forget it, I'll show my style and spirit." Sun Jian consoled himself and got into position. When the referee announced the start of the match, he followed the plan and did not engage in guerrilla warfare. Instead, he unexpectedly launched an attack. His bent back and knees straightened, and he pounced on his opponent like a ferocious tiger. Although Zhui Yanjun did not expect such a change, her strength was there, and she was confident. She calmly took a step forward and blocked the path of Sun Jian's footwork. Her right shoulder exploded, and her arm slashed vertically like a sword. Pa! The muscles on Sun Jian's right arm swelled, and with a shake of his arm, his fist ferociously smashed out, blocking his opponent's chop with a bang. At that moment, his joints popped, and he used the 1-inch force. His 5 fingers opened, and his fist turned into a claw. In a flash, he grabbed Zhui Yanjun's forearm. Flower-parting willow hand. Zhui Yanjun's arm softened and turned into noodles. Immediately after, she shook her strength and tightened it into a sword and an iron pole. She directly flicked Sun Jian's fingers away. She turned sideways, her abdominal muscles swelled, and her fascia pulled. Using her left elbow as a dagger, she quickly stabbed out. This was the combination of fly-fall punches, continuous, and black-water sword techniques, close-range stab. It was fast and extremely compact. Sun Jian did not have time to dodge, nor did he have time to use his legs. He could only force his shoulders to block with his arms. Bang! He was knocked back a step, but Zhui Yanjun was unforgiving. She continuously attacked, and in a few short moves, he was flustered. In the end, he was stabbed in the chest by a sword, and the pain was so great that he almost fainted. Round 5, Zhuo Yanjun wins. The final result, Donglin squad wins. The referee's announcement made Zhang Jingye and the others fall into silence. In return, the home audience applauded in a reserved manner. Phew. Lu Qing and Yan Zhika exhaled at the same time, looking a little gloomy. Although this was an expected loss, and although there was still a chance for a comeback, a loss was a loss, and the result would not make people happy. Seeing the live reporter from Donglin TV station coming over, Lu Qing quickly calmed down and turned to ask Yan Zhika, "Is my expression okay?" "No." Yan Zhika pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes shining. "Good luck." "Okay." Lu Qing took off the big white towel draped over his body and stood up. "Hello, Lu Qing. I'm Zhang Hai, a reporter from Donglin TV station. Can I interview you?" The reporter said the same opening lines. Lu Qing did not hide the gloominess of his defeat. "Sure." Zhang Hai was a young man in his 20s. He looked quite amiable. Hearing this, he smiled and said, "Lu Qing, you guys have done well today. If it was a full score of 10, I would give you 9. I've read your profile. This should be the first time you've encountered a professional 8th pin of the dance stage in perfect condition, right? What do you think?" Lu Qing pretended to ponder and said, "Very strong. I was suppressed in all aspects, but I think I could have done better." "Oh, why do you say so?" Zhang Hai asked with interest. Lu Qing smiled bitterly. "Maybe it's because I cared too much and didn't have enough experience. I was very anxious in the first round and wanted to finish my opponent in one go. Not only did I make a lot of mistakes, but I also carried this emotion to the second round. I didn't make a better choice at the critical moment." He did not expose Ho Yu's supernatural ability and pretended to be ignorant, so that the Donglin squad could still rely on this in the next round. All is fair in war. "I see. You've only been practicing martial arts for half a year. It's normal that you lack experience. Don't worry too much." Zhang Hai comforted him and continued to ask questions according to the outline. After a few questions, he politely stopped and went to interview Lin Quebec. Lu Qing took 2 steps back and leaned to Yan Zhika. He lowered his voice and said, "Ku, how was my performance just now? Would they see through my lies? Would it alert the Donglin squad?" Yan Zhika smiled and nodded with obvious dimples. "Very sincere and true." Speaking of this, she rolled her eyes and said with a faint smile, "I feel that you're good at lying. Will you lie to me like this in the future?" This. Lu Cheng's mouth was half open and he was speechless. This was completely different from the answer he had expected. "Shouldn't you praise me? You were the one who taught me this deception strategy." "I feel like I've been tricked again." While thinking, he laughed and said, "How can I hide this little trick from you, Coach Yen? I'll lie to anyone but you." "Yes, yes." Yenjika nodded first and then said with a serious face, "You'll lie to anyone but me? Tell me, which girl do you want to lie to? This is all a trick." Lu Cheng was stunned and did not dare to answer casually. Looking at his stupefied look, Yenjika finally could not help but laugh. She completely calmed down from today's regretful failure. The silly Cheng is so adorable. On the other side, Zhang Hai stood in front of Lin Quebec. As usual, he made the opening remarks first and then asked, "Lin K, what do you think of the continuous outbursts of an 8th pin dance stage fighter today?" Lin K took a white towel to wipe his sweat and said calmly, "Very strong. He is really a man of few words." Zhang Hai kept smiling and said, "Then what do you think of your performance?" "Lost." Lin K spat out 2 words and then turned to walk to the away team locker room. "Lost? What kind of answer is this? I'm asking for your evaluation." Zhang Hai was confused. Not far away, Yenjika sighed and whispered to Lu Cheng, "In my brother's dictionary, losing means bad. Did losing equate to being very bad?" Lu Cheng could not help but think about this sentence. Although he would hate any kind of failure, he would not be as extreme as Lynn Quebec. It was true that different people had different personalities. Thinking of this, he felt a little sympathy for the poor reporter who needed a translator to interview his brother-in-law. The return trip was still a busy one. It was almost 9 p.m. when the martial arts club members arrived at the new campus of Songqing University. For convenience, they ate the high-speed train meal on the way. Seeing Yenjika's tiredness, Lu Qing did not try to lure her to take a walk by the lake. Instead, he held her hand and walked slowly on the pedestrian street. Their destination was the dormitory of the third building. When they were about to reach the door, he remembered that the bonus had been paid into his account and he could buy a ring. So he began to consider his words and asked Yenjika to go shopping tomorrow. Considering their current intimacy, there was no need to ask so seriously for a date. But Lu Qing wanted a surprise, so he was thinking about what excuse to use. Yenjika looked up and thought shyly and awkwardly whether she should take the initiative to propose a date tomorrow and take Qing to buy a ring to surprise him. If she wanted to propose, what should she say? She pursed her lips and looked to the side. When she was about to say something, she suddenly heard Lu Qing say with a smile, "Ku, would you like to go shopping with me tomorrow? My martial arts shoes are broken again. I need to buy a pair or two." Before Lu Qing could finish his excuse, he saw Yenjika smile sweetly. Her smile was so bright that even the light from the surrounding street lamps was taken away. Okay. Lu Qing did not know why the girl was smiling so happily, but he could not help but smile as well. Back in the dormitory, Lu Qing found the small dormitory empty. He immediately understood that Zhao Chang and the others would play in Donglin for a day to make friends. TSK, only girls can make Chang temporarily abandon his studies. He shook his head with a smile. Carrying a hot water bottle, he walked out of the small dormitory and prepared to wash up. At this moment, he heard the sound of the key turning and saw the door open. Kai Zongming walked in. "You're back." Lu Qing was startled. Kai Zongming smiled. "Surprise?" "Surprise your ass." Lu Qing looked behind Little Ming in confusion. "Where are Chang and the others?" "They're still in Donglin. The train leaves at 5:00 tomorrow afternoon." Kai Zongming said matter-of-factly. "Then why did you come back by yourself?" Lu Qing asked, amused. Kai Zongming said, "I have special training tomorrow morning. Besides, I already have a girlfriend. I just need to help them get together. Why would I want to watch the model worker show off his love?" "Oh." Lu Qing showed his understanding with a smirk and said with emotion, "Talker, I didn't expect you to stick to the special training." Kai Zongming's face became serious. "Of course. I'm a man of my word." Then he pretended to be excited and said, "Qing, I'll make up for the bench seat next semester." Chapter 211. You'll fill the bench? Lu Qing looked at Kai Zongming from head to toe. He suddenly shook his shoulder and stretched out his right hand, grabbing Kai Zongming's left arm. His martial arts had been trained to the point where his muscles were so small that just the strength of his wrists and fingers could not be said to be able to tear apart iron chains, but at least he could tear apart flesh and blood. At this moment, his 5 iron fingers pierced through the air and unexpectedly let out a sharp whistling sound, full of momentum. Kai Zongming was shocked and immediately moved his left arm back to avoid the attack. Lu Cheng's first grab was a feint, but his first step was for real. His left foot caught up with Little Ming's, and he leaned and squeezed, causing Little Ming to take a step back and hit the back of the simple sofa. Little Ming lost his balance and was about to fall on his face. Lu Qing stretched out his right hand again and grabbed Kai Zongming's arm. He pulled Kai Zongming back and helped him regain his balance. During the whole process, Lu Qing never put down the hot water bottle in his left hand. He looked at Little Ming, who had a baffled expression on his face. He raised his right index finger and shook it. He said with a smile, "Too weak. You want to dominate the bench of the martial arts club with this level of skill?" Kai Zongming realized. He was angry and amused. You're so cheap that I want to beat you up. Lu Cheng was also amused. Come on, you're a dog if you don't beat me up. Kai Zhongming was so angry that he almost spat out blood. He said solemnly, how can a cultured and well-mannered person like me be so violent? Come on, let's compete in games. As long as you can think of it, you can take your pick. Okay, I'm not afraid of you. Before he had a girlfriend, Lu Cheng was also a teenager who liked to play games. But now he was short of time and could only play games occasionally. In the end, Lu Cheng lost miserably because he thought that replying to Yan Zhika's messages was more important than playing games. He was repeatedly delayed at critical moments and was trampled by Kai Zhongming. Kai Zhongming didn't reply to his messages because his straight-A student girlfriend Fang Yuan was still immersed in self-study. After relaxing, it was time for the usual training. The next morning, before dawn, Lu Cheng appeared by the Weishui Lake. Following the predetermined procedure, he repeated the still stance, moving stance, and other moves one by one. Practice makes perfect. This time, he spent more time on practicing the simplified physical invulnerability move, severe warning. He wanted to get started as soon as possible so that he could deal with Zhou Jinquan. Now that they had reached a situation where they had to win 3-1, and since they had expressed their desire and confidence to win back Yan Zhika and Lin Kei, they had to seize every opportunity to improve themselves. So far, mastering their most powerful killing move was definitely a crucial step. Lu tried his best. But it was too difficult, he felt. There was no shortcut. Foots. This made him a little impatient. He had to open his eyes and breathe in the fresh morning air to calm down the ripples. Geezer Shi, who was watching leisurely, laughed. Do you want to master severe warning before Sunday? I have to try. Lu Cheng blushed. Geezer Shi walked over with his hands behind his back and said with a smile, even if it's just a simplified version, physical invulnerability moves aren't something you can master easily. Even if you can create miracles like the previous few times and barely grasp the basics before the weekend competition, it won't do you any good. Do you think Zhou Jinquan will stand there like a wooden stake and wait for you to prepare your severe warning? Wait for you to meet force with force? You need a short time to master your frost force, not to mention the severe warning you just learned. If you really put your hope on this move, you will be like a 3-year-old child holding a 1,000-pound hammer. Not only can you not hit the enemy, but you can also hurt yourself. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and felt that what his master said made a lot of sense. He had been too optimistic about it. Fighting with an 8th pin Dan stage fighter, who was much more experienced and powerful, an unskilled move would only be a failure. Master, what should I do? Lu Cheng finally thought of asking for advice. Geezer Shi coughed twice and said, as an elder in your life and as your teacher, I have the responsibility to tell you that failure and setbacks are not things that you can avoid if you want to. Reality is not a game that you play. Not every obstacle is within your ability. Looking at the history of martial arts development, only a very few seniors who were second to none in terms of talent and luck were able to achieve undefeated in their lifetime. However, after the rise of professional competitions, the number of fights between the strong increased dramatically. This kind of feat can no longer be replicated. Experts as strong as the Dragon King, the Warrior Sage, and Geezer Shi paused for a moment before continuing, and some other experts have tasted failure and setbacks. It's not a bad thing for you to experience this earlier. I've seen many talented young martial artists who had a smooth start to their career and won many battles. Their confidence was inflated to the extreme. When they encountered an unexpected defeat, most of them couldn't accept it and were left with a serious flaw in their mentality. From then on, their improvement slowed down and they became ordinary people. Failure and setbacks not too early or too late can make you recognize your own limits. Recognize the limits of 1 year and 10 years. Then you will understand what you should do, what you should not do, why you should be in pain, and why you should not be in pain. Fighters who have survived many life and death battles have such characteristics. They know what is impossible, know what is risky, and know the limits of their ability. Lu Cheng listened thoughtfully and nodded slightly. Indeed, after the battle with Zhou Jingquan, he realized the lack of experience and the gap between realms. After defeating Wei Xingtian, the slight contempt he had for the 8th Pin Dan stage had completely disappeared. If it was not so, he would not have thought of practicing severe warning. And this kind of failure only made him more determined, without too much pain and shaking of confidence. 1 year later, when he fought with Zhou Jingquan alone, he might not necessarily lose. But, to be honest, he really did not think this was a setback. Master, I understand. Lu Qing exhaled and answered. But what should I do now? I think we have a chance to turn the tables. Geyser laughed. Now? Continue practicing severe warning. Ah. Lu Cheng was confused. I have studied a lot. You can't lie to me. You didn't say that just now. Geyser said leisurely, the purpose of practicing severe warning is not to master it, but to use it to further master Frost Force and Thunder Roar Zen. This is what you have to fight against Zhou Jingquan. Got it. Lu Qing suddenly realized. He had almost gone astray. The older, the wiser. After Lu Qing finished practicing hard and began to run around the lake, Geyser hummed a little song and walked to the martial arts club leisurely as if he had drunk 10 pounds of wine. He had held back those words for several months, and now he finally had a chance to say them. He felt really comfortable in both body and mind. He felt that the sky was blue, the water was clear, the wine was good, and the air smelled better. In order to prepare for that lesson, I carefully selected a few simple but meaningful words and specially consulted the young teacher next door. I chose the most acceptable game analogy for teenagers. Do you think it is easy for me? Geyser drank a mouthful of wine happily. At 2:00 in the afternoon, Lu Qing woke up from a nap to relieve the tiredness from the hard practice. At the thought of going shopping with Yan Zhika and finding a chance to give her a ring of great significance, he was so excited that he rushed into the bathroom, cleaned himself up, and combed his hair until it looked fresh and clean. What should I wear? Should I wear something more formal to give her a ring? The inexperienced Lu Qing went back to the wardrobe and fell into deep thought. It was the middle of May, and the sun was shining brightly in recent days. Short-sleeved t-shirts and jeans were the mainstream outfit. Recalling Little Ming's guidance, he picked a pair of casual pants and a navy blue shirt. After thinking for a while, he added a thin jacket. Although it was silly to wear a jacket in this temperature, the air conditioner should be on in the mall. If Ke felt cold, the jacket would come in handy. Haha. Lu Qing went out feeling good about himself and came to the door of the 3rd dormitory. After a few minutes, he saw Yan Zhika appear at the entrance of the unit. She was wearing a white half-sleeve dress with a small waist, highlighting her slender figure. The hem of the dress was just above the knee, with the tulle wrinkles, elegant and light. Coupled with her delicate facial features, elegant and graceful, and her long hair fluttering when she walked, Lu Qing really felt like he was looking at a fairy. Although they saw each other every day and he was used to it, he was still amazed by her beauty from time to time. Maybe this is beauty in the eye of the beholder? Yan Zhika was wearing a pair of white shoes. She didn't wear a very mature outfit, which fully displayed the most charming youth and pure beauty of her age. Feeling her boyfriend's passionate gaze, she was a little shy. She outlined her dimples, looked to the side, and said as if nothing had happened, "Let's go." Lu Qing held her hand and said shamelessly in a low voice, "I thought I saw a fairy just now." Yan Zhika's bright eyes narrowed. She said with both anger and delight, "You're so mushy." Hee hee. Lu Qing chuckled. Only then did he notice that the girl was carrying a light orange-red sling bag, which added a touch of color to her plain outfit to prevent her from looking monotonous. "I think your bag looks familiar," he said casually. "It's like, Yan Zhika chuckled and helped him add, "like the yellow bag that old ladies carry when they go to pray to Buddha?" Yes. Except for the different color, everything else is similar." Lu Qing nodded hard. "I don't know what foreign designers think." Yan Zhika chuckled. "I remember LV has a red, white, and blue handbag, which is similar to our woven bag." Huh, yeah, I've also seen that news. Lu Qing echoed with a smile, and then said in confusion, but I remember it's Louis Vuitton in the news. Yenjika suddenly burst into laughter. She turned to look at him, her eyes sparkling as she said, idiot. LV is the abbreviation of Louis Vuitton. Lu Qing wiped his non-existent cold sweat. I always thought they were two brands. He learned something new again, Yenjika chuckled. My other cousin also thought so before he had a girlfriend. Well, remember, it's also nicknamed Donkey Brand. The knowledge of boys and girls is really different. Lu Qing once again felt that Coach Yen was indeed his life mentor. They talked about all kinds of things and seemed to have endless topics to talk about. It was not until they boarded the school bus and sat side by side that they suddenly quieted down for a moment. Later on, according to the predetermined opportunity, I'll give her the ring in a surprise way. Lu Qing smiled and looked at the aisle, not letting her know what he was thinking. How embarrassing it would be to give each other rings later. And how should I hint to Qing? I can't suggest it directly. Yenjika turned to look out of the window, shy and happy. Chapter 212. The school bus started to move slowly. Yenjika recalled something and pulled Lu Qing's hand. She pouted and said, Qing, our plan of deception is probably useless now. Why? Lu Qing was puzzled and held the girl's left hand. Yenjika answered with slight annoyance, I forgot about Coach Shi. He's a mighty one with physical invulnerability. The elders of Wenxing School wouldn't be so naive as to think that he couldn't see anything. Oh my god, how embarrassing. As the IQ of the martial arts club, I actually made such a big mistake. It was all because Coach Shi's presence had been too weak during the previous competition. He had been the one to analyze the situation between himself and the enemy, and he had forgotten that there was such an old senior. Yes, it's all his fault. Lu Qing didn't think much about it at that time. Now that he heard his girlfriend's words, he immediately realized. You're right. It's mainly because during the preliminaries, we were like children without a mother. I almost forgot that we had a coach. You think so too? Yenjika was so moved that she almost burst into tears. She looked at Lu Qing pitifully and shook his hand gently. Right? It's not my fault. And he hasn't reminded me of this since the end of the competition. Lu Qing mumbled to himself. When I went to the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament, my master didn't tell me what to pay attention to for the first time either. I don't know if he forgot, or he was too lazy, or he purposely gave me a chance to train. Yenjika found an ally and felt relieved. She thought for a while and said, maybe we can beat him at his own game, huh? What do you mean? Lu Qing asked in confusion. Yenjika pulled back her hand and unlocked her phone. She opened her notebook and typed quickly while telling her boyfriend, you see, the depth of our thinking is like this. On the first level, we pretended not to notice Ho Yu's supernatural ability. Wenxing School knew that we had a mighty one with physical invulnerability and saw through our act. They wouldn't be fooled, so they changed the original plan from A to B, thinking further down, which is the depth of our thinking just now, is called the second level. We thought of the flaw of the physical invulnerability coach and understood that the deception plan had failed. We knew that the Wenxing School wouldn't follow the original plan of relying on Ho Yu's supernatural ability for the competition. What about the Wenxing School? They should have expected us to notice this. Even if we didn't, the physical invulnerability instructor would have warned us. Therefore, the improved version of Plan A is even more unexpected. Lu Qing was a little confused, but he was still a student who got into Songqing University on his own merit, so he managed to grasp the main point. Cool, this kind of deep thinking game can be played continuously, right? I know something. That's right. There's only one key point in analyzing the depth of one's thoughts, and that is to accurately determine which level the other party is at, and then let oneself be one level deeper than the other party. Yenjika typed quickly and focused on her analysis. Our current information focuses on the martial arts and fighting styles of the members of the Donglin squad. We lack information on their personalities, habits, and social interactions. For now, we can only make a preliminary judgment. Their depth of thinking is probably at the second level. Listening to her serious analysis and looking at her focused expression, Lu Qing felt that Yan Zhika was so beautiful that he couldn't take his eyes off her. He used his sharp senses to confirm that there was no one around, so he put his arm up to block the most likely line of sight. He leaned over, lowered his head, and gave her a quick peck on her pink and smooth cheek. However, they are very likely to choose a safer and more conservative strategy. Yan Zhika revealed a thoughtful expression. Suddenly, she saw a shadow in front of her, and then she felt a sudden warmth on her face. She was stunned for a few seconds, and then she lowered her voice in shock and shyness. "What are you doing?" "This is the school bus." Lu Qing didn't take any further action. He sat up straight again, looked into her eyes, and laughed in a low voice. Coach Yan was so beautiful just now. Yan Zhika suddenly understood and blushed. She snorted and held back the smile on her face. She turned her head to look out of the window and said, "Pervert." Her side profile was as beautiful as a peach. Lu Qing was complacent and laughed. He was happy to be called a pervert. After a few minutes, the heat on her face faded a lot. Yan Zhika looked around guiltily, only to see that everyone was drowsy in the afternoon sun and the slightly swaying bus. Phew. She exhaled quietly and changed the topic with sweetness in her heart. "Cheng, how far have you practiced that simplified physical invulnerability move?" Cheng's face is getting thicker by the day. He can even say those mushy words without blushing or panting. Lu Qing first told him about his master's advice and then said, "That's all I can do for now. Severe warning isn't something that can be mastered just because you want to. I still need some heat to overcome the first obstacle." "The first obstacle? Is it the connection between the two visualization methods you mentioned before?" Yan Zhika was very curious about her boyfriend and martial arts. When the two were combined, the effect was much more than 1+1. Looking at his girlfriend's bright eyes, Lu Qing nodded helplessly. "Yeah. One is thundercloud, the other is ice. Not only do they have nothing in common, but they also repel each other." Yan Zhika's bright eyes looked up and muttered, "The core of my grandfather's yin-yang twist is the transformation of the two contradictory things, yin and yang. In terms of materialistic dialectics, it is opposition and unity. Cheng, I think you should think in this direction." At this point, she smiled and took Lu Cheng's forearm, drawing circles on the back of his hand. "This symbol is very vivid." Lu Qing stared at it and felt it with his heart. He whispered to himself, "Tai Chi, opposition and unity, the transformation of yin and yang." Thoughts flashed through his mind. Suddenly, he thought of a better reference. "Isn't the Jin Dan in my body the unity of ice and fire? Can I imitate it and not try to connect the two visualization methods, but directly mix them together to form a similar balance? In that case, will the final, severe warning be mutated?" The more Lu Qing thought about it, the more excited he became. He held Yan Zhika's hand and looked at her sincerely. "I think I have an idea. Coach Yan is indeed amazing." "Really?" Yan Zhika was pleasantly surprised, happy and proud. "Yes," Lu Qing said with a hint of urgency. "Let's try it tomorrow morning." Yan Zhika didn't reply. She pursed her lips and smiled. She felt a strong sense of participation and accomplishment. In a famous shopping mall in Songqing, Yan Zhika took the box from the shop assistant and passed it to Lu Qing. "Try this pair." Lu Qing glanced at the price and whispered, "You don't have to buy such an expensive pair. It's easy to break anyway." The first pair of martial arts shoes Yan Zhika gave him had a special meaning, so he didn't wear them often. He only used them occasionally for training and would wipe them clean as soon as possible. He cherished them as if they were his own body. "It's not too expensive." Yan Zhika paused and changed the topic. She smiled and said, "I believe you get what you pay for. A good pair of martial arts shoes can help you exert force. Although it may only increase your strength by 1% or less, it's better than nothing. Besides, the martial arts shoes of other brands are not that much cheaper. As long as a martial artist didn't practice Golden Bell cover, he was still immortal before he reached the physical invulnerability state. During a fierce fight, if he stepped on something sharp with his bare feet, he might hurt himself. The martial arts shoes were a layer of protection. If it wasn't necessary, no one would deliberately break them. Not that much cheaper? Lu Qing ridiculed him. That's hundreds of yuan. It was enough to cover a month's worth of food expenses. Although he had gone through tough times in the last 3 years of primary school and middle school, he had the care of his grandparents and cousins. In addition to his own personality, he loved money, but he did not develop the habit of being stingy. Now that he had just earned a large amount of extra income with his own ability, he was full of confidence. The young man was full of spirit, and it could even be said that he was a little extravagant in spending money. Of course, he was willing to spend money for Yan Zhika. He was a little frugal for himself. At this moment, he remembered the rule that, whatever Coach Yan says is right. He didn't refute and tried one pair after another. Well, let's go to Feiyue and have a look. Yan Zhika glanced at the shoes he tried and made a decision happily. She was happier to take Qing shopping than to buy clothes by herself. Still looking? Lu Qing was at a loss as to what he had been doing for so long. Yan Zhika answered matter-of-factly, yeah, let's shop around. Maybe there are some activities and discounts in other stores. You don't care about this little discount, do you? As a good student of Coach Yan, Lu Qing asked in confusion. Yan Zhika glanced at him and smiled. This is different from buying cheap martial arts shoes. Anyway, we will buy good martial arts shoes. If there is a discount, we will make a profit. Although it's not much, I like the feeling of making a profit. What kind of logic is this? Lu Qing was stunned. Yan Zhika raised her head proudly. A woman's logic, okay. Lu Qing was speechless. He followed Yan Zhika to one store after another. Finally, they went back to the first store and picked the first and third pair of martial arts shoes they tried. I tried for so long. What is it for? Lu Qing wiped his non-existent cold sweat. When they were at the cashier, Yan Zhika took out her card. Let me do it. Lu Qing stopped her. Yan Zhika pretended to be proud. I'm going to get the bonus. I want to buy something for my boyfriend, nod if you are my boyfriend. Okay. At this point, what else could Lu Qing do? He could only nod his head with sweetness in his heart. Yan Zhika paid the money and pointed to the upper floor. Let's look at the clothes. I feel that you only have a few summer clothes. Well, you are very suitable for wearing slim clothes now. Okay. Lu Qing carried the 2 bags and followed his girlfriend. He used to read on the internet that men often complained about shopping with their girlfriends or wives. The most common type was that the girl was shopping while the man was resting, but he was so tired that he was about to be paralyzed. However, now he wanted to say that the most tiring thing was not this. It was your girlfriend who kept asking you to try this and that. Although it was very happy and sweet, it was physically and mentally exhausting. Couldn't you choose quickly and buy quickly? Only a freak with abnormal stamina like me can enjoy it, right? Lu Qing thought proudly. When he had a few more bags in his hands, Yan Zhika finally walked to the first floor of the mall. Lu Qing looked at several famous jewelry stores nearby and began to think about how to lure Yan Zhika there. When he was thinking about what to say, Yan Zhika said excitedly with a pink face, Qing, let's look at the jewelry, huh, so simple? Lu Qing was stunned and nodded quickly. Okay. Later, he would encourage Yan Zhika to try a set of rings and remember her favorite type and the size of her finger. Then he would pretend that he was not satisfied with the type and take her away. Then he would use the bathroom as an excuse and come back to buy it. Then he would give her a surprise during dinner. Hee hee. Lu Qing went over his plan one last time and felt that it was perfect. He even thought about what to say when he gave her the ring. Chapter 213. Yenjika looked straight ahead, not daring to turn her head to look at Lu Cheng. She randomly picked a jewelry store and rushed in, pretending to admire the jewelry, but her heart was beating fast. I can't let him find out my purpose. That's so embarrassing. Luckily I'm smart enough not to let him hold my hand before I suggested it. Otherwise, I'd be exposed. Wait, how should I hint to him? Lu Cheng followed Yenjika's gaze and looked at the rings in the glass counter. His heart was also beating fast, but it was because he was scared. All the diamond rings here cost more than 100,000, 70,000, 80,000, 50,000 or 60,000. The cheapest one cost more than 10,000. Compared with them, my private savings are so shabby. Lu Cheng's hidden pride of earning more than 30,000 in half a year disappeared. He felt a little inferior, but more of his desire and drive. While he was still young, he still had the ability to work hard. He must succeed. And in the field of martial arts, according to his master, Dan's stage was the beginning of the martial arts world. Yenjika didn't know what she was looking at. It took her dozens of seconds to come to her senses. She glanced at the jewelry inside, walked a few steps calmly, and switched to the platinum ring counter. She started to choose carefully. Seeing the prices here, Lu Cheng felt like he was back in the world again. Following the girl's gaze, he pointed at a simple classic ring and asked, "Do you want to try it?" Huh? So proactive? Yenjika was stunned and pretended to be normal. Okay. She and Lu Cheng both had good temperament. The shop assistant put on the gloves and asked with a smile, "Miss, what's your ring size?" "I haven't bought one before. Please measure it for me." Yenjika answered frankly and didn't feel embarrassed that she hadn't bought one before. Which kid would buy a ring for no reason? Okay. The shop assistant turned around to look for the utensils. For Lu Cheng, this was the highlight. His eyes were shining and his ears moved slightly. Yenjika looked at him and felt that Cheng was a little strange. The middle finger is size 11. This ring is just right. The shop assistant looked at the data on the girl's left hand and said, "What about the ring finger?" Lu Cheng couldn't help but interrupt. Yenjika's heart skipped a beat as she vaguely sensed her boyfriend's eagerness. She thought for a moment and connected the dots between the broadcasting bonus, the sudden shopping invitation, and the active suggestion of trying on the clothes. She came to an obvious conclusion. Does Orange want to give me a ring? The corners of her mouth curled up little by little. She couldn't hide her smile no matter how hard she tried. Her ink-black eyes flickered with a bright light. The phoenix does not have a pair of wings, but our hearts are as one. This poem appeared in her mind, and her heart felt warm and sweet. Ring finger 9. The shop assistant finished the measurement and took out the ring Lu Cheng had mentioned before. She put it on Yenjika's middle finger and complimented her with a smile. "It fits you perfectly. It's beautiful. Let's take a look at the others." Yenjika took the initiative to speak before Lu Cheng could think of an excuse. She took off the ring and deliberately looked at her phone. Holding back her laughter, she said seriously, "Cheng, I have something to ask you." "What is it?" Lu Cheng allowed himself to be pulled out of the jewelry store by the girl and stopped at a corner. He was confused. Yenjika bit her pearly white teeth and said with a faint smile, "Do you want to give me a ring?" "Ah." Lu Cheng was stunned by the slap. Was I so obvious? Where's the promised surprise? The girl's pretty face became serious. "Don't lie to me." Lu Cheng blushed and had to confess, "Yes, I was thinking about giving you a ring since I gave you the prize money for the preliminaries. We have been officially dating for almost 100 days. When a child reaches 100 years old, they will celebrate and hope to live a long life. Our relationship is like that of a newborn child. We also need a good sign on the 100th day. We will live a long life, grow old together, and grow old together." These were the words he had prepared to say when he gave her the ring. He had expected that once the surprise was created, the atmosphere would become suitable enough, and it would be quite touching and sincere. But now that he had not done anything, he suddenly had to say it. It was really awkward no matter how he said it. His feeling was right. When the atmosphere was not right, the more Yenjika listened, the more she wanted to laugh. What is this? What a strange metaphor Cheng is using. Her sense of humor was touched. She covered her mouth with one hand and pressed her belly with the other, shaking with laughter. I will remember Cheng's confession. I will remember it for the rest of my life and be happy for the rest of my life. What do you mean by the beginning of a relationship is like that of a newborn child? Do you want to hold a 100th birthday banquet? Lu Cheng took a breath and helplessly looked at his girlfriend, who was less amused. It was a success to make her laugh. Yenjika laughed for a while and gradually calmed down. She recalled Lu Cheng's words just now. She didn't know why, but she felt a little touched. Her cheeks became pinker and redder because of her laughter. She looked at Lu Cheng with bright eyes and snorted, "Since you want to give it to me so sincerely, I will reluctantly accept it. But rings are in pairs. If I have one, you don't. What kind of boyfriend and girlfriend are we?" As she spoke, she couldn't help but look to the side, not daring to look at Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng instantly forgot his embarrassment and nodded hard. "Okay. Then I will buy a pair of rings, one for you and one for me." "No, your ring is meaningful only if I give it to you." Yenjika guided him step by step and finally laid the prelude to her words. "Well, it's easy to lift something heavy, without a hint of smoke or fire." "That's true." Lu Cheng happily held her hand. "Then let's go and choose a pair of rings." Speaking of this, he suddenly felt that the development of this matter seemed to have been arranged. "Who proposed to look at jewelry just now?" "It seems that I may have been tricked again." He held back his inexplicable smile and warmth and asked tentatively, "Ku, did you plan to take me to choose a ring from the beginning?" "What did you say?" "I don't understand." Yenjika's pretty face suddenly turned red. She turned her head to the side and answered firmly. She wanted to say no directly, but she didn't want to lie to Lu Cheng. Why did Cheng suddenly become so smart? Lu Cheng stopped while he was ahead. Like a weasel who had stolen a chick, he pulled Yenjika back to the jewelry store with a smile. This time, they were looking at platinum rings. After some selection, Coach Yen made the final decision. They bought a pair of simple and classic rings. There were only 2 spiral lines on the rings that converged at the front, setting off the polished water droplets. Because of the different sizes, there were no fancy inlaid diamonds. The women's ring was cheaper, more than 1,100 yuan. After paying with his credit card, Lu Cheng carried the bags and looked around, trying to find a quiet place where he could put the ring on Yenjika's finger. As for which finger to put the ring on, he had already checked. The middle finger of the left hand. Yenjika looked at him with a smile and pretended to be careless. "There is a cafe on the 4th floor, really?" Lu Cheng asked subconsciously. Then he stopped doubting and sighed with emotion. "You are so observant, I should have been enjoying the feeling of shopping with her, pain and happiness." Yenjika proudly raised her head. "Of course, I am a famous detective." 4th floor, Yuanmu Coffee. They found a booth in a corner where there was no one around. This time, Lu Cheng deliberately sat opposite Yenjika, opened the box of the women's ring, and solemnly picked up her left hand. Yenjika lightly bit her lips, blushed, with dimples on her cheeks. Her eyes were a little evasive, but she still firmly watched Lu Cheng's movements, watching him carefully put the ring on her middle finger. In an instant, she felt that the atmosphere around them had become very solemn and serious, not like a couple playing house. While slowly pushing the ring down, Lu Cheng half-jokingly said from the bottom of his heart, "I'm sorry. Put on this ring, and you are my wife." When he said the word wife, he had a heavy feeling that this would be the most sacred responsibility in his life. "This ring is very ordinary, but I will give better and better ones in the future." Engagement rings, wedding rings, anniversary rings. Yenjika burst into laughter. She wanted to scold him for his wishful thinking, but when she opened her mouth, she didn't say anything. She looked at Lu Qing drunkenly as he completed the ceremony. Then, she opened the box of the men's ring, picked up the ring, and took Lu Cheng's left hand over. Her body slightly trembled as she helped him put it on his middle finger. Her eyes looked at the two shining rings, and she said shyly and brightly, "Put on this ring, and you are my Cheng." Her voice was weak at first, but gradually it became smooth, and she got used to it. She became bold and firm. Hearing this, Lu Cheng's heart surged with excitement and satisfaction. He wanted to hold his beloved girl in his arms and share his passion and feelings with her. But the cafe was not private enough, and there were many customers coming in and out. He could only control his mood and sit beside Yenjika, letting her lean on his chest, and stroking her smooth black hair. Yenjika quietly leaned on Lu Cheng, listening to his warm heartbeat, feeling his overflowing love, and enjoying his silent gentleness. After a long time, she suddenly burst into laughter and said to herself, "I thought of a word." "What?" Lu Cheng asked with a smile. His voice was very soft because he didn't want to break the peaceful joy. Yenjika reached out to hold his arm and said with a smile, "Guess." Lu Cheng racked his brain and thought about his own feelings. He said with uncertainty, "Privately pledged to be married?" "Yes." Yenjika confirmed with a blush on her cheeks. They had a tacit understanding. Looking at her shy face, Lu Cheng couldn't help but want to tease her. "Ku, we have exchanged rings. Shouldn't we change the way we address each other? What should I call you?" Yenjika asked innocently and blankly. "Husband, wife, or something?" Lu Cheng said with a cheeky smile. Yenjika suddenly felt shy and annoyed. She reached out to punch his chest. "You wish." After enjoying the endless time spent together in the cafe and happily eating a local dish recommended by Kai Zongming, the two of them held hands and walked through the old campus. They took the last school bus and returned to the new campus that had yet to quiet down in the night. When she got off the bus, Yenjika suddenly took a deep breath. "What's wrong?" Lu Cheng was sensitive and focused on the girl. How could he not notice the abnormality? Yenjika pursed her lips and turned her head. She answered shyly, "My legs are a little sore. After practicing martial arts for the whole morning and shopping for the whole afternoon, it was inevitable that her legs and feet were sore." Lu Cheng immediately said, "Do you want to find a place to sit and let me give you a massage?" She wasn't tired at all. Even her tired spirit was completely uplifted by the exchange of rings. Yenjika rolled her eyes at him and said with anger and amusement, "I'm wearing a dress, idiot." No matter what position she used to massage the legs and feet, it would be very embarrassing. Lu Cheng patted his head and secretly sighed that he was not meticulous enough in some details. So he suggested, "Then let's find a chair to sit and rest for a while." Because it was the last school bus, the surroundings became quite quiet as the bus left. Although there were still people coming and going, there weren't many of them. Yenjika nodded and followed Lu Cheng to a bench. She took out a tissue from her bag and asked Lu Cheng to wipe the back of the bench. After sitting down, she bent down and rubbed her calves. Her eyes twinkled and she smiled with curiosity and shyness. "Cheng, I thought you would suggest a walk by the lake." When they exchanged rings in the afternoon, Cheng was so excited and happy. She always felt that he was suppressing his passion and wanted to release it. Who knew he would hold it back? Since they communicated on the 1st of May, Lu Cheng didn't kiss her passionately every time they walked. However, the environment by the lake was so good, the atmosphere was so suitable, and they were in the stage of love. So for Yenjika, on this special day when they exchanged rings, a walk by the lake was like a request for intimacy. Lu Cheng put his arm around the girl's shoulder and pulled her closer to him. He tilted his head and stared into her eyes. He smiled and said seriously, "If I were to suggest going to the lake now, I would feel that the exchange of rings was just to trick you into being intimate with me. But to me, it's actually a very solemn and sacred thing. It's my promise and expectation. It's not an excuse to trick you into being intimate with me. I want to prove to you that you are the most important person in my heart. I only want to be intimate with you because I like you. That's why I'm so excited and thirsty, and not the other way around. I want to prove to you that I'm a man of my words and can control myself." This was an impulse blurting out, but also a burst of accumulated thoughts in his heart. Yenjika's beautiful black eyes were covered with a thin layer of mist. She bit her pink lips with her white teeth and scolded him with joy and tenderness. "You're getting more and more mushy. You can even say such romantic words that are close to the dialogue of a TV series." "But why do I like it a little, more than a little?" Lu Qing could hear the girl's true tone. He smiled and said, "Anyway, I don't want our special day to be mixed with desire." Of course, there was passion and impulse in the afternoon, but he restrained himself. Speaking of this, he added with a smile, "In fact, I also like our relationship like this." "I like it too." Yenjika leaned her face on Lu Cheng's shoulder with a peaceful and beautiful smile. After a short snuggle that didn't need to be spoken, she kept whispering, half teasing, half confused. What if I invite you to take a walk by the lake tomorrow night?" Lu Cheng's heartbeats suddenly sped up. He also heard the girl's rapid heartbeat from their clasped palms. His mouth was dry and full of expectation. "Then I'll definitely be happy." Yenjika's lips parted and she took 2 quick breaths to calm down the heat on her cheeks. She smiled and said, "I'm just saying if. I just wanted to tease Cheng. But why do I feel like I'm possessed by a ghost after saying it? But Cheng's reaction is really funny." Lu Qing shook his head with a smile. He rubbed the girl's hair and deliberately said fiercely, "Be careful or I'll be beastly." "I believe you." Yenjika sat up straight and smiled sweetly. Her eyes were pure and innocent. After that, she jumped up with her hands behind her back and said, "Let's go back to the dormitory. Today is really a happy day." In the shadow of the 3rd dormitory, Lu Qing held the girl's hands and was reluctant to part with her. "See you tomorrow." Yenjika resisted the urge to stick to him and said cheerfully. Lu Qing looked at the ring on her left hand and then at his own ring. Seeing that they were a pair, he suddenly had an impulse and pulled the girl back and hugged her tightly. "This is my wife, what's wrong?" Yenjika felt Lu Cheng's excitement. She blinked and asked in confusion. Lu Qing said half jokingly and half sincerely, "I just saw the pair of rings on our hands and suddenly wanted to call you my wife." When he said this, he suddenly felt a little shy. "But I don't think I'm qualified enough to accept this title. I don't have enough ability to make your life better, so I held back." "You're so mushy." Yenjika hit him lightly. After dozens of seconds of silence, she changed her mind and held back her laughter. She left Lu Cheng's arms and said like a water lotus, How about I call you that?" "Really?" Lu Cheng was pleasantly surprised. My words just now moved Ku so much. So much so that she could muster up the courage to call me that. "Really?" Yenjika said with a serious expression. Okay. Lu Qing nodded hard and answered without pausing for fear that the girl would change her mind. Yenjika took 2 steps towards the door of the dormitory, then turned around and looked at Lu Qing shyly. She opened her pink lips and said in a low voice, "Wife." Ha ha ha. After that, she left Lu Qing in a daze and ran into the dormitory with a series of cheerful laughter. Her long hair fluttered in the wind. She laughed so hard that tears almost came out. Today is really a happy day. Wife. I've been tricked again. Lu Qing wanted to be angry, but he couldn't stop smiling. He went back to the dormitory with all the bags. He looked through the bills and found that Yenjika had bought 7,000 or 8,000 yuan worth of shoes, clothes, and pants for herself, not including the rings. She didn't buy a lot, but the price was relatively high. And Ku seemed to think that these clothes and pants were not good enough. Lu Cheng was not a fool. He could feel that Yenjika didn't care about her own money and wasn't sensitive about it. In other words, she didn't worry about money. Thinking about the aura of Empress Dowager and the martial arts of her grandfather, many things could be understood without saying. Putting down the bags, Lu Qing replied to Yenjika's message and sighed softly. If he wanted to marry this wife and not let her be wronged, he had to work harder. If it was in the past, he would definitely feel inferior. But now, after so many hardships, he felt that he had the confidence to fight for it. As long as they could get along well, everything else would not be a problem. If he couldn't be a rich second generation, then he would be a rich first generation. The next morning, by the Weishui Lake, Lu Cheng, who was brimming with fighting spirit, restrained his temper and carried out his daily training until he finished most of his homework. Then he began to think about how to use the Jin Dan to complete the opposition and unification of the two visualization methods. He concealed his spirit and qi, suppressed the distracting thoughts, and lowered his spirit little by little towards the Jin Dan in his lower abdomen. Before this, he had already thought about how ice and fire were opposed and unified. He was an excellent student who had gone through junior high and senior high school physics education. In the 2 semesters compulsory courses, there were also college physics and university physics, so he had long developed this kind of thinking pattern and was used to using it to analyze things in nature. Therefore, from a similar point of view, ice and fire were only different on the surface. In fact, they were different states of matter under different temperatures, different pressures, and different environments. Thinking about it to the limit, when it reached ultra-low temperature or ultra-high temperature, ice and fire could be replaced by condensed state and plasma state. The same matter with different microstructures, the same thing with different sides, unified and opposed. Lu Cheng had not studied the knowledge of these two aspects in depth, so he could barely grasp this point. Slowly immersing his spirit, he enlarged the scene inside the Jin Dan in his field of vision, bit by bit. The flames were like the sun, equivalent to stars, emitting light and heat in the extremely low temperature and dark universe, illuminating the eternal loneliness of life. Ice crystals surrounded them. They were unusually cold and merciless. They were like planets and moons. However, from the outside, they reflected light and shone resplendently like stars in the night sky. In other words, they were fixed stars. This isn't right. Lu Cheng felt that this was against his understanding and observation of astronomical phenomena. He boldly made a change and no longer regarded the ice crystals as stars or planets. Instead, he regarded them as a symbol of the cold and dark universe. They represented the vast starry sky, not specific stars. His perception changed, and what he saw shook. The starry sky and nebula of the Jin Dan suddenly enlarged to the extreme. In the dark and cold boundless void, dust and matter kept accumulating and pulling each other. Finally, it reached the limit of gravity, violently collapsing and changing, igniting flames and giving birth to stars. Lu Cheng's initial understanding of the unity of ice and fire was under the microscopic structure, but this was on an astronomical scale. Extremely small and extremely large were also opposites and unified. And this was different from the image of Longhu Immortal. As soon as the image appeared, Lu Cheng's spirit was quickly drained. He had to withdraw and stop the visualization. He always felt that Longhu Immortal had made a mistake when dealing with the starry sky image of the Jin Dan, treating the flames as the sun and the ice crystals as stars. His success in the end seemed to be a bit of a fluke. For a moment, he suddenly understood why Peng Liyun took the college entrance examination, why he went to college, and why he chose the physics department of Shanghai University. In ancient times, martial artists did not have tools, nor did they have practical theories. They could only rely on themselves to understand nature, accumulating knowledge bit by bit and passing it down from generation to generation. But in today's society, people had a more realistic understanding of matter and the universe. It was a waste not to use them for martial arts. Gizershur stood aside with relaxed mind and body. He found that his disciple was not practicing severe warning, but was inexplicably in a daze, so he asked casually, "What are you doing?" Lu Cheng was too embarrassed to say his thoughts before because he was afraid of being laughed at by his master. Now that he was asked, he honestly said, "Master, I was thinking that since Longhu Immortal's ice and fire can be balanced and unified, why can't I mix the two visualization methods of Thunder War Zen and Frost Force together?" Gizershur was stunned at first, then he convulsed with laughter. "Not bad, not bad. You have more ideas than I did when I was young. Give it a try, you can't go wrong. Only by giving it a try could one know what was whimsical, what was right, what was not enough, and what was a real idea that could be implemented." Lu Qing blushed and felt a little embarrassed, but he also received his master's encouragement, and began to calm down and think about the similarities between thundercloud and ice seal. Chapter 2:14. On Sunday morning, beside Weishui Lake, Lu Qing stood with his legs apart and his eyes closed. His body seemed to be moving up and down along with the water. The wind around him was very light, mixed with the coolness and dampness of the rainstorm in the middle of the night. Everything seemed so peaceful and quiet. At this moment, Lu Qing put his left foot inward, bounced his back, and punched out his right fist like a club. Bang! He punched the air, and the quiet winds suddenly exploded and whimpered, rippling out in circles. Compared to before, they were stained with a bone-piercing chill, condensing a sparkling light, covering the wet ground within a 1-meter radius with a thin layer of silver frost. The further away it was, the less traces there were. This dreamy scene that violated the season paused for 3 seconds before disappearing. Lu Qing opened his eyes and saw it, but he couldn't believe it. Was this the power of his mutated version of severe warning? Although he could only punch once without deep sleep, but even an 8th pin Dan stage fighter couldn't take a punch, right? After nearly a week of hard work, continuous improvement, and difficult copying, he finally completed the fusion of thundercloud and ice seal, which could be considered as a new visualization method of falling sun, ice and thunder. And the changes of the corresponding muscles, fascia, and internal organs of his body had also been tempered into the beginner's door. In other words, his simplified version of severe warning of physical invulnerability was basically mastered, but the biggest problem was that he wasn't skilled enough and flexible enough. It's 2 beats slower than Frost Force, but as long as I can seize the opportunity to hit Zhou Jingquan, things will be simple. Lu Qing thought happily. Although severe warning didn't need to connect 2 visualization methods and was simplified into a martial art with only 1 visualization diagram, it was still a low-level version of physical invulnerability. After all, he had just learned it and still needed some time to prepare. He could only use it through excellent improvisation and anticipated traps to create opportunities to use it. This would be something out of Zhou Jingxuan's expectation, so he definitely wouldn't be prepared. As for the specific power of severe warning, Lu Qing couldn't accurately judge because he hadn't experienced it in actual combat. Thinking of the initial mastery of the unique skill, the competition in the afternoon, and the fierce battle with an 8th pin expert, he was excited and expectant. He took a breath and eagerly said to Gizershur beside him, "Master, I'm going for a run." After an hour of deep sleep in the afternoon, everything would be ready. All that was left was to begin. Go ahead. Gizershur waved his hand impatiently. After Lu Qing had left in high spirits, he sighed with a smile and shook his head. So young, at around 2:00 in the afternoon, Yenjika packed up her things and changed into a white martial arts suit with black edges. She was a little nervous and excited at the same time. At this moment, Li Liantong turned off the computer and said in a clear and urgent voice, "Ku, wait for me. Let's go together." "You're going there so early?" Yenjika knew that her roommate was going to watch the competition and cheer for the martial arts club, but she didn't expect that she would leave so early. Li Liantong had specially changed into a short-sleeved t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers. She pointed at herself and said with a smile, "I feel that I have fallen in love with the atmosphere of the martial arts competition. Don't you think this outfit suits you? The feeling of everyone working together for one thing, the atmosphere where they could vent to their heart's content without caring about the gazes of others, and the passion of shouting and singing for victory filled him with nostalgia and love. Over there, she could do something different from the usual Li Liantong. It's okay. In fact, wearing the same martial arts suit makes me feel more involved." Yenjika answered the question seriously first, and then looked at her roommate from head to toe. She teased, "Dirty Tong, are you bewitched? I remember that you didn't like martial arts very much in the beginning. Isn't your love for filth and corruption? People change." Li Liantong said seriously, "I'm such a quiet and sunny girl, so I need a little masculine hobby to balance, neutralize it." Zhong Yenru had turned her head when they were talking. At this moment, she snorted and said, Dirty Tong, you're becoming more and more suspicious. What do you mean by suspicious? Look, I've already prepared a small trumpet and an inflatable hammer. Li Liantong pulled out her weapons. Yan Jika pursed her lips and smiled, posing like a famous detective. You're even more suspicious. That's right, that's right. Dirty Tong, you weren't so enthusiastic about the martial arts competition before. Shi Xiangyang leaned over the bed and smiled ambiguously. Did you fall in love with a guy who practices martial arts? Li Liantong looked at her three roommates with an aggrieved expression. Am I such a person in your eyes? Yes. Yan Jika, Zong Yenru, and Shi Xiangyang answered in unison. I've really fallen in love with martial arts competitions. Haven't I been watching your preliminaries all this time? I was moved by Lin Kei and your Cheng's performance, and attracted by the atmosphere during the competition. Believe me, I've almost become a die-hard fan of your martial arts club. Li Liantong said her thoughts in a joking tone. Yan Jika stopped teasing her and said with a faint smile, welcome. It felt good to have someone supporting her, especially a familiar roommate. At this moment, Li Liantong's eyes turned, and she forgot about her seriousness. She smiled and said, you're in a favorable position and you've taken Qing away. We're all good roommates, so we won't fight among ourselves. So, does Lin Kei have a girlfriend? Wow. I knew you were up to no good. Zong Yenru laughed out loud. Shi Xiangyang also rubbed her cheeks and said, I was saying that the Dirty Tong just now was so unfamiliar. This is your real face. Favorable position. It always feels weird when it comes out of Dirty Tong's mouth. Fortunately, they don't know that Lin Kei is my brother. Yan Jika thought and smiled. Dirty Tong, don't think about it. Lin Kei's character is not suitable for ordinary people. Speaking of this, she suddenly sighed. As a sister, who wouldn't want her brother to be happier and happier? But, Li Liantong didn't care. She raised the inflatable hammer and said, do I look like an ordinary person? After joking around, she called out to Zong Yenru and Shi Xiangyang seriously, Ru, Cabbage, let's go together. Let's cheer for the martial arts club. In the female dormitory of the Academy of Arts, Wu Qian finished her makeup and asked her roommates, is anyone going to watch the competition? I still have something to do. I don't want to get out of bed, so I won't watch you guys show off your affection. Two of the girls immediately said that they wouldn't go. They were only interested in watching the martial arts club's competition at the beginning. Another quiet girl wearing large framed glasses hurriedly packed her things and said, Wu Qian, I want to go. Yanxi, you want to go? Wu Qian had expected the answer. She felt that the most likely person to not go today was her roommate, Fan Yanxi, who was a quiet artist. Fan Yanxi nodded seriously and said, yeah, I like watching the martial arts club's competition. Wu Qian looked at her in confusion and didn't ask more. She smiled slightly and said, then hurry up, I'll wait for you. Okay. Fan Yanxi nodded heavily. She was going to cheer for the martial arts club today. Yan Shaoling was lying on the bed as usual. She quickly opened the live video website. At the same time, she was also looking at the information she collected and provided by the unparalleled Dragon King. Every time she flooded the forum, she would make fun of herself and say that it was okay if she didn't understand and that she just had to be a love-struck fool. But in fact, she was a very serious and hard-working girl. She had been cramming martial arts knowledge to catch up with her friends. She couldn't always make fun of herself to maintain her position as a moderator. She had to cheer for Lu Cheng and the Songqing University Martial Arts Club later. In the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Xu Rui sat in the reporter's seat. She looked at the interview prompts on her phone notebook and sighed in distress. She felt a headache when she thought of interviewing Lin Kei again today. Her phone screen lit up and showed a few lines of words. Lin Kei, martial arts fanatic. If he wins, he can talk and direct the questions to the details of the competition. If he loses, then, Xu Rui's thoughts were wandering. Suddenly, she felt the noisy stands become quiet. Instinctively, she looked at the gate and saw Zhou Jingquan walking in first. He was wearing a black traditional Chinese costume with red patterns. His temperament was gentle and his manners were calm. The few spectators were stunned. Behind Zhou Jingquan, Hou Yu, Zhui Yanjun, Li Xingnan, and the others walked in one after another. On the 19th of May, 2:46 p.m., the Donglin battle squad arrived. The last match of the top 8 in Songqing Division. Chapter 2:15. Under everyone's gaze, the Donglin squad calmly crossed the field and walked to the locker room of the away team. When they passed by the reporters, Zhou Jingquan glanced at Xu Rui and nodded with a smile. "Hello, Reporter Xu." During the group matches, the Donglin battle team often visited Songqing. He had seen this reporter who left a deep impression on him a few times. Xu Rui remembered the rule of not interviewing fighters before the competition. She stood up and said, "Hello, good luck." After a short greeting, Zhou Jingquan didn't look sideways. He straightened his back and walked forward without swaying. When they were far away from the reporters, Hou excitedly approached his senior brother and asked in a low voice, "Senior brother Zhou, why don't you talk to reporter Xu for a while?" As an 18-year-old teenager who couldn't stay still, he loved to gossip about things other than martial arts, games, and girls. Xu Rui, whom he had met several times, and Yan Zhika, whom he had watched in the competition videos, were often mentioned in his discussions with his senior brothers and junior brothers. Now that he saw them in person, he couldn't help but tease them. Interviews before the competition will affect one's mood. Zhou Jingquan answered calmly. "That's true." Hou nodded and then winked. "Senior brother Zhou, do you want to ask for her phone number or QQ or WeChat later?" Zhou Jingquan chuckled. "Not at all. Asking for a girl's contact information will ruin my image. Little monkey, can't you concentrate on the competition?" Li Xingnan, who had sharp ears, scolded Hou at this time. Hou quietly stuck out his tongue and answered with a cheeky smile, "Got it. I'm very focused during the competition." "It hasn't started yet, right?" In the reporters' seats, Xu Rui watched their backs disappear at the locker room door. She shook her head and sneered, "Show off, I've seen all kinds of men." When Lu Cheng, Yan Zhika, and the others arrived at the martial arts arena, there were not many spectators. But the students they met on the way recognized him as soon as they saw his clothes and temperament. Even if they didn't recognize him, they would know that he was Lu Cheng, the leading member of the martial arts club, after seeing Yan Zhika beside him. "Come on, our entire dormitory is here to cheer for you guys." A cheerful boy clenched his fist and waved. "Lu Cheng, you can do it." Although a girl was so shy that her voice was trembling, she still mustered up the courage to shout out. Lu Cheng didn't expect to receive such a warm reception. For a moment, he didn't know how to react. He could only smile, nod, and wave with a stiff expression. Yan Zhika curled her lips and held back her laughter. She pretended that she didn't know this guy and walked forward calmly. When they were almost at the door of the changing room, she laughed softly and said, "Does it feel good to be a star?" Lu Cheng rubbed his stiff cheek muscles and said with a wry smile, "I finally understand a word, flattered." This was the support of the students. This was both motivation and pressure. Filled with emotions, he pushed open the door of the locker room and let Yan Zhika enter first, followed by him. Clang! The bustling atmosphere was isolated from the outside world. At 3:00 sharp, all the participants of the preliminaries had arrived. Geezer drank a mouthful of wine and wiped his mouth. He looked around and said with a smile, "Little Yen, this time you'll be the one to say the words." "Me again?" Yan Zhika was both angry and amused. "Who was the coach?" Smack the table. Hearing their conversation, everyone, including Lu Cheng, couldn't help but laugh out loud. The tension that had been brewing before the match suddenly dissipated a lot. Even Lin Kei showed his emotions at that moment in a small arc that ordinary people couldn't detect. Yan Zhika rolled her eyes at her boyfriend and pursed her lips. Based on Wenxing School's previous behavior and the fact that they won the first round, we can believe that they will adopt a safe strategy. They won't ask for credit, but they won't make any mistakes. Humph, I'll say it. Anyway, I've often discussed this with Qing before. As for the specific in-depth analysis of thinking, she didn't describe it, so as not to confuse everyone. That is to say, they will still let Zhou Jingquan fight second instead of taking the risk of sending an 8th pin Dan stage fighter first or last. If Zhou Jingquan is the first to enter the arena, it's very likely that the situation with Fearless Squad will repeat itself if he encounters Lin Ke and Lu Qing in that order. He will be defeated by Lu Qing, who has insane stamina. If he is the last to enter the arena, he will be worried that we will use Lu Qing as the vanguard. The premise of all this was that they didn't know that Qing could also be tired. And judging from the details of the last match and the feedback afterwards, no one except for herself had realized this. Isn't it the same as when they fight first? Sun Jian raised his hand and asked. Yan Jika shook her head like a coach. More or less the same, but the details will be adjusted. I think they will put Hou Yu last. Why? Li Mao and Guo Qing asked in unison. Wenxing School knows that Hou Yu's supernatural ability can't be hidden from us, so they can't let him be a surprise attack. His fighting style and fighting style are very suitable for last. Think about it. If Lu Qing and Lin Ke were in the same order, as long as Zhou Jingquan didn't have a big problem, Lin Ke, who was facing Hou Yu, would definitely consume a lot of energy and show a decrease in strength, even if it wouldn't be as tiring as the last round. Then he would be restrained by the opponent who is good at monkey form. Moreover, his supernatural ability is special. Even if he takes precautions and raises his vigilance, he will still be easily affected when his body functions decline. If we let Lin Ke fight first, no matter if his opponent is Zhuo Yanjun or Li Xingnan, he will consume a lot of energy and reduce the pressure on Zhou Jingquan. At that time, under the full power of the Dan stage, even if he can't defeat Lu Qing, there is a high chance that he will be injured. The fly fall punch's waterfall is somewhat similar to tremor punch. Lu Qing's physical strength is abnormal, but it doesn't mean he is invincible. Once he is affected, it will be very difficult for him to face Hou Yu, who is jumping around. Sun Jian understood Yan Jika's meaning and thought it was very reasonable. But another question arose. Since Hou Yu is so suitable for the last match, why didn't the Donglin squad arrange him like this before? First, to use his supernatural ability as a surprise attack. Second, Hou Yu's fighting style is very taxing on his body. We only mentioned Lu Qing and Lin Ke before, but we didn't mention you, Senior Sun Jian. Yan Jika smiled slightly. When Hou Yu defeats them, he will consume a lot of energy. He may not be able to beat you, and may lose 2-3. So, they fought for victory in the last match, and this match is for stability. After saying that, she glanced around and remembered that she was shy. She blushed slightly and said, I'm done analyzing. The order of the martial arts club's appearance must be arranged by Coach Shi. Next to her, Lu Qing took the opportunity to consider the pros and cons of his appearance first or later. If he appeared first, he would encounter Zhou Jingquan in his best condition. With his experience and strength, he might not find a chance to use severe warning. It could only be said that without the consumption of Hou Yu's supernatural ability, he would definitely perform better than he did in the Donglin squad, and there was hope that he could force out his opponent's continuous outbursts. If he fought later, Zhou Jingquan would be weakened in all aspects after the fierce battle with Lin Ke, and Meng Qi was quite confident that he would be able to create an opportunity to use severe warning. However, the problem was that severe warning was currently a great burden to him. After defeating Zhou Jingquan, he still had to continue fighting Hou Yu. Therefore, unlike when he fought first, he didn't need to consider a way to retreat, didn't need to be overcautious, and didn't need to hold back. He could go all out to fight Zhou Jingquan and find a good opportunity to use severe warning. Comparing the two, it was better for him to appear first. While his thoughts were running wild, Lu Qing didn't make the most beneficial choice for himself because he had considered another problem. This match had to be won by 3-1 to have a chance to make a comeback. In other words, the one who appeared later couldn't lose. If he couldn't afford to lose, he would have to bear the pressure of winning. If he lost, considering Lin Kei's self-esteem and desire to win, and the fact that he could say, sorry, in the last match, it would be a great blow to him and make him full of guilt. Normal people would be upset and feel pain for a while, let alone Lin Kei, who was a bit mentally ill. I can't put pressure on him and aggravate his problem. This was not because he sympathized with Lin Kei, but because he wanted to protect him. It was not only for the sake of Yen Jika, but also because they were the two pillars of the martial arts club. After fighting side by side for so many matches, they had long developed a sense of camaraderie with each other. As one of the leading fighters, as a man, this was the time to use his shoulders. I'll bear the pressure. Lu Qing exhaled and said before Gizershur could say anything, Coach, I want to be the second to appear. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on his face. Some were puzzled, some were surprised, some were biting their lips, and some were shaking with ice. This was a rare volunteer. Lin Kei pursed his lips and stepped forward. He looked straight at Gizershur and said, Coach, I want to be the second to appear. Lu Cheng had expected this. While complaining about his brother-in-law's strong self-esteem, he explained calmly, I've been practicing a killer move recently. It's suitable for Zhou Jingxuan's condition to decline. Gizershur laughed. Everyone is very enthusiastic. I know that Lu Cheng has mastered a killer move. He'll be the second to appear. Lin Kei tilted his head, took a deep look at Lu Cheng, and nodded his head ever so slightly. He didn't say anything else and retreated to the corner. The order is Lin Kei, Lu Cheng, and Sun Jian. Let's make the final adjustments quickly. Gizershur said casually. Yen Jika was so smart that she had already guessed her boyfriend's thoughts. She pulled him to another corner, showed her dimples, and said in a low voice, Thank you. Do we still need to say thank you between us? Lu Cheng made a joke that could evoke memories. Yen Jika rolled her eyes and said with a smile in her eyes, I'm saying it for my brother. Your brother doesn't need to say thank you, unless he doesn't treat me as his teammate. Lu Cheng said seriously, but he felt it was too serious, so he laughed and said, unless he doesn't treat me as his brother-in-law. Yen Jika looked at this guy who was getting more and more shameless. She wanted to pinch him, but when she thought of his upcoming match, she held back her restless hand and snorted. Hearing the girl's coquettish anger, Lu Cheng felt happy. He closed his eyes and planned to rest. Looking at his action, Yen Jika's eyes moved and her expression became gentle. She leaned close to his ear and said in a low voice, Cheng, you're so nice. This is the right way for a girlfriend to thank her boyfriend. Lu Cheng immediately smiled, but he didn't open his eyes. He just held Yen Jika's slender hand and drew strength from it to better adjust his state. This was both pressure and motivation. In the away team locker room, the leader of Wenxing School, N.I. Mingfei, looked around at all the disciples and stopped Hou Yu, who was running around in the room. In this match, we need to be steady first. Yu Chuan is the second to fight, so he can attack or retreat. N.I. Mingfei said concisely, they must be on guard against your supernatural ability. You're the last to fight, so you have to win. Yanjun, you're the vanguard. No matter if you meet Lin Kei or Lu Cheng, just remember one thing. Don't be afraid and play your normal level. Do you understand? Understood. Hou Yu and Zhuo Yanjun answered in unison, while Zhou Jingquan took out his black martial arts suit from his junior brother's backpack and carried it to the bathroom. At 3:27, in the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, Fang Juexiao suddenly felt refreshed and said to the guest beside him, Ganlu, they're coming out, both sides are coming out. In the background of the broadcast, the sound of small loudspeakers was heard all over the stadium. According to the list and order of appearance they had just received, the first match was clear, Lin Kei versus Shui Yanjun. Chapter 216. In the stands, Li Liantong was still a little reserved and restrained. However, when she saw Lu Cheng, Lin Kei, and the others walking out of the home team's locker room one after another and heard the sound of the loudspeakers around her, the passion hidden in the depths of her heart was ignited. She raised her hands high, waved them back and forth, and shouted rhythmically with the audience nearby, "Songqing University, Songqing University. Songqing University, go for it." Zhong Yanru and Shi Xiangyang saw their roommate's selfless performance and were stunned for a moment. They couldn't believe that this was the dirty Tong they knew. Whether she was quiet on the outside or dirty on the inside, she was very different from her current self. However, when the announcer started to read the names of the main force and substitutes of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Li Liantong and the other audience members responded in an echo-like manner. They also felt that something was stirring in their hearts, and they were eager to vent something. They wanted to be part of this crazy but intoxicating atmosphere. Unconsciously, they also shouted. Because of their different personalities and habits, they were not as crazy as Li Liantong and still retained some reserve. But they also turned their voices into drops of water in the waves. Lin Ke, Lu Cheng, Wu Qian and Zhang Jingye followed Kai Zhongming and the others and shouted. Fan Yanxi held the loudspeaker and blew to her heart's content. Under her quiet appearance was a red face and passionate eyes. In such a tsunami of shouts, the referee stepped into the arena. He looked at both sides and made the final confirmation. He took a breath and let his voice penetrate the noise without the help of the loudspeaker, resounding in every corner of the stadium. Songqing University Martial Arts Club vs Donglin Squad in the quarterfinals of Songqing Division. Round 1, Lin Ke vs Shui Yanjun. Lin Ke suddenly stood up. He didn't directly walk to the arena. Instead, he walked past Li Mao and Yan Zhika and came in front of Lu Qing, stretching out his right hand. Lu Qing was stunned at first, then he smiled and reached out his hand to Lin Ke for a high five. "Go for it." Lin Ke nodded slightly, turned around, and stepped into the arena. Zhui Yanjun was already standing there, as straight as a tree. She closed her eyes and rejoiced that she was still in the world of martial arts and could still step into the arena. The enemy on the other side was not easy to deal with. Last time, when he was exhausted, he had given himself a fright. Now that they had met again, he believed that everyone was certain that he would win. It was just a matter of how much energy he had expended. But I don't think so. I've also trained step by step to become a strong professional ninth pin fighter. There's a gap between me and a Dan stage fighter, but it's not so big that I can't make up for it. Just because there's little hope doesn't mean there's none. This wasn't Zhui Yanjun being blindly arrogant. Rather, she believed that when encountering a strong enemy, holding on to the idea of going all out was a better way to accomplish the predetermined goal than having the mentality of seeking stability and attrition. Even if he wanted to settle for the next best thing, there had to be room for retreat. If he didn't use winning as his motivation, how could he take a step back and seek to wear down his opponent? Just as Zhui Yanjun was about to sort out her thoughts, the referee raised his right hand and solemnly said, 3 minutes. Zhui Yanjun knew that Lin Ke was a taciturn person who wouldn't even fart after being hit with a stick. She didn't want to waste her breath, so she simply closed her eyes and considered her thoughts for the last time. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, Fang Juexiao chuckled. With Lin Ke as the representative, Songqing University Martial Arts Club doesn't seem to have any martial artists who are good at talking. It's hard to interpret the interesting verbal battle in the broadcast. A large part of the reason why he was able to become the host of Songqing TV station's martial arts competition step by step was that he was multi-talented and could even read lips. Ganla smiled and shook his head. Don't you see what kind of background they have? If they were good at cursing, they would have been dealt with by the school. They're college students, so their quality is definitely higher. Old Gon, you've been out of the normal society for too long. If you have time, you should go online more often. Nowadays, some college students are better at cursing than you. And I only said they're good at talking, not cursing. Debate is also one of them. Fang Juexiao tried to liven up the atmosphere while Lin Ke and Zhui Yanjun were stunned. As for the analysis of the outcome of this match, they had already discussed it before. Their views were quite consistent. Both sides had a chance, and it all depended on how they performed on the spot. While Fang Juexiao and Gan Le were discussing verbal skills, Kai Zhongming looked at Lin Ke on the stage and felt the enthusiasm around him. Once again, he yearned for it. If I were standing there, I would definitely be as handsome as him. I wouldn't waste these 3 minutes. On the stage, the referee looked at the electronic clock and silently counted a few times. Once again, he raised his right hand and shouted in a clear voice, "Begin." The sound of the announcement still echoed. Suddenly, a series of thunderous sounds came from Lin Ke's body. It was like the buzz of a motorcycle rushing out, or the exhaust of a car before it started. It made Zhui Yanjun suddenly think of a sentence recorded in the secret book of Fly Fall Punch: "The wind is blowing before the storm. The wind is blowing before the storm." This was a sign that Lin Ke's muscles, bones, fascia, and internal organs were accumulating strength. This was a sign that he had broken through the limits of his physique refining. This indicated that he was only 20 or 30 days away from the dance stage. As the sound echoed, Lin Ke suddenly rushed out like a meteor. In an instant, he closed the distance of more than 6 meters between the two. His momentum was fierce, and his power was astonishing. Although Zhui Yanjun had the idea of gambling on the outcome of the match and wanted to attack from the start, she still didn't dare to fight head-on with Lin Ke, whose momentum had climbed to the peak in an instant. However, she also couldn't retreat. In this kind of confrontation, if she dodged, her opponent's momentum would be like a rainbow. He would continuously press forward and put her at a complete disadvantage. If she wanted to turn the situation around, she would have to gamble according to the plan. It would take twice the effort for half the effort. As her thoughts turned, she, who had rich experience in the arena, slid to the left. It looked like she wanted to avoid the frontal attack and attack her opponent from the side. As soon as she moved, Lin Ke's center of gravity swayed. His body strangely changed directions at high speed without any sense of difficulty. Seeing that her opponent's right arm muscles had already swelled, Zhui Yanjun's spine sprung up dramatically. Her back muscles swelled, and she forcibly pulled her body back. She wasn't trying to dodge, but to wear down Lin Ke's momentum. She shifted her center of gravity, and her feet fiercely pushed inward. Her right hand, which had been pressed diagonally to the left side of her waist, pulled out with the sound of breaking bricks. It was as if a sword had rushed out of its box and turned into a waterfall. It illuminated the entire room, and its edge was enough to kill. Black water sword technique, sword drawing breaks water. This move was created by the founder of Wenxing School after comprehending the secret art of the water sect. He traveled to Japan at that time to challenge the masters of the way of the sword. He combined the local sword drawing technique with his own swordsmanship, taking the strengths of both and discarding the weaknesses of both. Zhui Yanjun used a special technique to turn her waist and back. Driving her right arm, she quickly, fiercely chopped her palm blade from the bottom to the top toward Lin Ke's side. It was a bit earth-shattering. "I didn't come here to wear you out, but to win. I will use all my strength and not hold anything back." Lin Ke's body suddenly stopped. He withdrew his momentum and then released it. His left hand clenched into a fist and exploded the air with the force of a hammer. He fiercely hit Zhui Yanjun's long sword within a very small range. Bam! Lin Ke's left arm involuntarily bounced away from the force of sword drawing breaks water. Zhui Yanjun's body swayed and her right hand followed. At that moment, she stepped back, not to dissipate the force, but to borrow it. With a crack, she fiercely pounced forward. Straightening her back, she raised her left arm high, splitting Huashan Mountain alone. She knew that Lin Ke's tremor punch was different from Lu Cheng's. It was faster and faster, so she couldn't give him the slightest gap. In the previous exchange, Lin Ke had borrowed a bit of force from the yin-yang twist. Following the rebound of his left arm, he had already turned his body. At that moment, his right hand went up and firmly blocked the chop. Bam! Zhui Yanjun's palm blade had just chopped Lin Ke's arm when her arm muscle strangely swelled and pushed up her martial arts suit. She had completed the long-awaited double force. Using this force, her left palm was like a blade. She was going to cut down and use the yin force to severely injure the muscles, fascia, and blood vessels under Lin Kei's skin. This way, he would need at least a month to recover. Blackwater sword technique's killing move, yin-yang double wave. The chop was yang, and the cut was yin. The yang force injured the bones, and the yin force attacked the flesh. At this critical moment, Lin Kei's face suddenly flushed red. His temples suddenly swelled, and the muscles of his right arm followed suit. Bursting with strength, he counteracted Zhuo Yanjun's yin force. The veins on the back of his hand bulged, as if they had doubled in size. After the swelling, Lin Kei first pulled his arm back and then bounced out, shaking off Zhuo Yanjun's palm blade. Then he put strength in his waist and back, pouncing forward and switching from defense to offense. Zhuo Yanjun didn't have time to adjust herself, so she could only continuously retreat. She saw Lin Kei coming closer and closer. His temples were swollen, and his left arm was about to deliver a fierce punch. She clenched her teeth and imitated Hou. When Lin Kei swung his fist, she suddenly squatted down and put her left hand behind her back. At that moment, Lin Kei's body trembled. His left fist suddenly swung back, and using his back as a fulcrum, he bounced out with his right leg. Bam! His right foot was taut, and his kick split the air. Zhuo Yanjun hurriedly raised her left hand to her side, blocking Lin Kei's kick while her center of gravity was unstable. Bam! Her body swayed, but she didn't control it. She pushed the boat along the current to the right. Lin Kei's qi and blood all over his body abruptly shrank into a ball, and then suddenly erupted. Boom! His strength surging, Lin Kei crushed the black bricks under his feet and pounced forward. He rushed to Zhuo Yanjun's side before she could regain her balance. His temples swelled, and he quickly swung his arm, blasting out a meteor energy. Zhuo Yanjun didn't have time to dodge. She took a short breath and barely managed to raise her arms to block in front of her. Bam! She only felt like she had been hit by a bomb. Every bone in her body was shaking, and even her muscles and fascia were trembling. Coupled with her unstable center of gravity, she directly fell on her back. She had no time or ability to wriggle her abdominal muscles to make a ha-ha sound in order to counteract the shock. Lin Kei moved forward. His right hand didn't attack. Instead, he grabbed her arm and lifted her up. At that moment, the referee loudly announced, "First round, Lin Kei wins." Chapter 217. The referee's announcement was met with cheers and honking horns. Winning at the start was always a joyous thing. Hearing Lin Kei again and again, Lu Qing couldn't help but whisper in Yan Zhike's ear, almost dance stage, how enviable. Indeed, if he and brother-in-law were in different positions and encountered Zhuo Yanjun's drawing sword and breaking water style, it would be impossible for him to unify all the strength in his body as one, stop as he wished, and hammer down to block in time. Faced with this extremely fast and ruthless move, he would most likely only be able to take advantage of the situation and throw himself to the side, hastily dodging. Then, he would fall into the opponent's follow-up moves, and with the slightest bit of carelessness, he could possibly capsize unexpectedly. This was like the ninth pin of the dark sect, who was tricked by the supernatural ability of fire, and in the blink of an eye, he was hit by a chain of attacks and died on the spot. At that time, he was inferior to the enemy in all aspects of martial arts. Similarly, when Lu Qing resolved the second wave of yin and yang, he couldn't do it at the moment. He had to understand the meaning of withdraw and train his strength to be both hard and soft, to be able to release it, incorporeal. Of course, this didn't mean that he had no way to deal with the second wave of yin and yang. If he grasped it well, he could use the swing force to resolve it. Yan Zhike's face was full of joy, and her lips curved into a smile. After hearing Lu Cheng's sigh, she lowered her voice and joked, "This is your little goal." Little goal? Lu Cheng smelled the girl's fragrance and smiled slightly. Reaching the physical invulnerability stage in 1 year was still too far away and didn't feel real. But it wouldn't be long before he could train martial arts into his body and reach the peak of his current state. Then he would be qualified to explore the meaning of withdrawing and unifying his strength. They were real, right in front of him, and he could reach out and touch them. Thinking that he could reach this level and the next step really made him excited. Using Zhao Chang's catchphrase, it was exciting. This is my little goal for the second half of the year. In the away team seats, Zhou Jingquan flicked his black martial arts suit and took large strides towards the arena like an immortal. When he met Zhuo Yanjun, he nodded slightly and said, "Better than I expected." He was tactfully praising Zhuo Yanjun for fighting well. If Lin Ke hadn't reached the Dan stage, it would have been hard to say who would win. Zhuo Yanjun held back her feelings and urged, "Hurry up and get on the stage. Don't give him time to recover." In the previous round, Lin Ke had tried his best to end the battle quickly, so he had used up a lot of energy. Zhou Jingquan nodded with a smile. His body didn't sway as he exerted force with his feet and strode into the ring, standing opposite of Lin Quebec. At this moment, the audience's cheers were getting louder and louder. A large portion of them knew that the biggest hurdle had come. The referee became spirited and swung his right hand. He did not give the two sides a chance to adjust. Begin. Lin Ke's muscles and bones crackled as he rushed toward Zhou Jingquan at lightning speed. It seemed that he wanted to repeat the story from before, using the offensive to gain the upper hand, and relying on the fierce battle of life and death to kill the strong enemy. When enemies meet on a narrow path, the courageous one wins. This was what it looked like, but in reality, Zhou Jingquan did not feel any tingling sensation from being attacked. A strong fighter of the Dan stage had absolute reaction. However, Zhou Jingquan did not dare to be careless, because he suspected that Lin Ke had mastered the ability of concealment after absolute reaction. In other words, he relied on the contraction of his qi and blood to hide his intention to attack until the moment he actually made a move. If that was the case, under certain circumstances, even with absolute reaction, he might not be able to block it in time. Zhou Jingquan retreated a few steps. His movements were as calm as flowing water, and his movements were extremely natural and at ease. Lin Ke, on the other hand, released his momentum like a rainbow soaring into the sky. The strength under his feet burst forth, and his body turned into a meteor, upright and mighty. At this moment, Zhou Jingquan seemed to have an illusion that he could not block the attack head-on. He understood that his momentum was being suppressed by his opponent, to the point that ripples appeared in his soul. This kind of situation could easily cause a misjudgment. He smiled slightly and stopped as he said. He bent his legs, shook his waist and back, and clenched his right hand into a fist, and hammered down with a whistle. This was not a swing, but a twisting movement of his waist and back. He twisted the strength of his body into one, and released an attack that was only slightly weaker than force concentration. Bam! Not only did the airflow explode, but it was also compressed by the fist, turning into an invisible arrow that flew straight towards Lin Ke's face. Lin Ke only felt a strong wind in his face, and he almost could not open his eyes. His momentum was stagnant, but his state of mind was firm, and he did not waver in the slightest. He narrowed his eyes, and using the momentum of the forward pounce, he straightened his back and quickly swung his arms. He did not back down and threw a forward punch. As for the follow-up, he was already prepared. Once he met Zhou Jingquan's downward punch, he would immediately use yin-yang twist to quickly release meteor force, and then imitate the explosion of the Dan stage to complete a two-hit combo. Victory would be decided in a few moves. Bam! As soon as the two fists collided, Zhou Jingquan's qi, blood, and spirit suddenly converged. His arms immediately became soft, making Lin Ke feel as if he had hit empty air. The powerful attack just now had turned invisible. His blood flowed back, and his strength gathered. His lower abdomen seemed to have condensed into a Dan. Boom! The human body Big Dan exploded, and a mighty force gushed out. Zhou Jingxuan's right fist, which had been bounced away by his opponent because of its softness, suddenly returned and took the initiative to meet Lin Kei's yin-yang twist. This force was so strong that when Lin Kei borrowed it, his body immediately trembled and involuntarily pulled back. He was pulled back 2 steps by the invisible rope. Zhou Jingquan took a big step forward and came in front of his opponent. In his mind, he visualized a rising stream of water, combined with the contraction and condensation of his qi, blood, and strength once again. Double explosion. Fly fall punch, waterfall. Lin Kei's entire body's strength was as one. Within 2 steps, he had already adjusted his center of gravity, but his opponent had already caught up. He raised his right fist high and hammered down like a waterfall. There was no time to dodge or retreat. He took a deep breath and condensed his blood, breath, and strength into a ball. Immediately after, the ball exploded, and a gale swept through. Lin Kei's temples swelled, and his face flushed red. Compressing his muscles and swinging his arms quickly, Lin Kei was not afraid and blasted the meteor force diagonally upwards. Bang! There seemed to be thunder in the place, and the sound reverberated outwards. Zhou Jingquan and Lin Kei's fists seemed to be frozen in the air, and their bodies shook together, their muscles clearly trembling. Zhou Jingquan didn't make a sound. He gathered his qi and blood again and held the dan, condensing the feeling of vibration, strength, and spirit into one point. In his mind, the flood was surging, filling the lake, and finally breaking the dam. Bang! That point suddenly exploded, and the strength was like a flood breaking the dam, pouring into Zhou Jingxuan's body. As he quickly turned his back, the strength poured into his left arm. Fly fall punch, dam break. Dan stage triple explosion. Bang! Zhou Jingxuan's left fist became a hammer and fiercely hammered out, constantly exploding the airflow along the way. From the beginning, he had learned a lesson from the last fight against Lu Cheng. No longer overcautious, he directly used all his strength without any reservation. This would definitely consume a lot of his physical strength, but at least he wouldn't enter the next round with the influence of Tremor Punch. If he was overcautious and kept thinking about the fight with Lu Cheng, not only would he not be able to reduce the consumption of physical strength, but he would also be left with the vibration, which would be more difficult. Lin Kei was not a real Dan stage fighter, so naturally he couldn't burst out continuously. His eyes were firm and his expression was fearless while his body was still trembling. He once again swelled his temples, tightened his muscles, and twisted his waist to punch like a meteor. Bang! The two collided, and the majestic force surged. Lin Kei couldn't stand steadily anymore. He forced himself to use yin-yang twist to bounce back, so as not to break his arm and suffer internal injuries. But Zhou Jingquan didn't suffer any shock, as he had expected it. He caught up with his opponent in a few steps. Before his opponent could adjust his center of gravity, Zhou Jingxuan's shoulder exploded, and his right arm shook, stopping his fist at Lin Kei's throat. Until then, Lin Kei's feet barely touched the ground. The power of triple explosion could really defeat all the fighters below professional 8th pin. The referee raised his right hand and shouted emotionlessly, "Second round, Zhou Jingquan wins." Lu Cheng took a deep breath and directly stood up from his seat. To be honest, he didn't expect Zhou Jingquan to burst out with triple explosion at the beginning of the match. He thought they would be entangled for a long time. But this is good. Although brother-in-law didn't let Zhou Jingquan be affected by the vibration, at least I don't have to worry about his strongest killing move. He reached out his hand and shook Yanjika's hand. He stepped forward and walked to the arena. The audience was silent at first, and then burst into screaming, "Lu Cheng!" Chapter 218. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, the host Fang Juexia shook his head and smiled. This match ended faster than I expected. Old Gan, hurry up and tell us what happened. Gan Le smiled and said. Gan Le chuckled and replied, "There's nothing to say. Zhou Jingxuan's Dan stage triple explosion, when he is in perfect condition, can kill a professional 8th pin fighter head-on. Lin K has just defeated a strong professional 9th pin fighter and consumed a lot of energy. This is the exact opposite of last week's fight. At that time, Zhou Jingquan had defeated Lu Qing, while Lin K was in his peak condition. Therefore, today's result is reasonable. The only surprise is that Zhou Jingquan didn't hold back at all from the beginning, as if he didn't consider the next round. Lin K should be proud. Zhou Jingquan is treating him as an opponent of the same level. There's no need to be depressed. After all, he forced Zhou Jingquan to use triple explosion of Dan's stage, right? Lu Qing doesn't have to worry about this in the next round. Fang Juexiao heard the director's prompt and interrupted in time. Well, Lu Qing is on the arena. The third round is about to start. Let's wait and see. Yan Xiaoling, who was watching the match broadcast and chatting on the forum, suddenly sat up straight and adjusted her posture, staring at the screen with bright eyes. Lu Qing. Lu Qing. Echoing in every corner of the martial arts arena, Lin K walked down the arena with a slight stagger. The head-on collision just now made his qi and blood boil, and he couldn't calm down for a while. When he met Lu Qing, he slightly lowered his head and gasped, almost, not good enough. Even though Zhou Jingquan had used Dan's stage triple explosion, should be able to do even better. That's enough. Lu Qing interrupted him and took the initiative to stretch out his right hand. Lin K hesitated for a moment and responded. Not only did he give a high five, but he also gave a strong handshake. At the same time, he whispered, "Come on." Lu Qing nodded, adjusted his state, and strode to the stone steps. Next, he had to find and create an opportunity to give Zhou Jingquan a severe warning. Of course, this was a killing move that could only be used once. If he wanted to complete the severe warning, he could only use the frost force once or the tremor punch 3 or 4 times before that. At this moment, Zhou Jingquan was doing breathing in and out methodically. His abdomen expanded and contracted, and his throat made a humming sound. Seeing Lu Qing on the arena and standing in front of him, the referee didn't stop. He raised his right hand and swung it down fiercely. Begin. From the last match and the daily practice with Lin K, Lu Qing was sure that the fake moves completed by visualization could not be hidden from the real absolute reaction. Therefore, he didn't try. He straightened his knees, moved his hips, and strode towards Zhou Jingquan. He didn't pounce straight away. Instead, he gathered his strength step by step and adjusted the corresponding parts of his body. He tightened and bulged different muscles and was ready to use severe warning. If Zhou Jingquan felt that his posture was too good and couldn't help but attack with full strength, he would fall into his trap. But if he didn't fall for it, it was just a part of his body that hadn't entered the visualization stage, so it wouldn't consume much energy. This was Lu Qing's first attempt. It seemed to be a regular attack, but it was full of hidden killing intent. Thump. 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 Lu Qing's steps became heavier and heavier. The green bricks under his feet began to crack. His body seemed to be taller with the support of momentum. He looked down at Zhou Jingquan. When he turned his waist and extended his right arm, Zhou Jingquan, who had been quietly waiting, moved. His center of gravity swayed, his feet slipped, and he flashed to his side. He shook his right shoulder and let his arms slanted out like an oar. Bam! Lu Qing knew that the trap was not complete, so he gave up visualization and didn't use the severe warning, in case he missed. He quickly adjusted his body. His waist tightened, his thighs tightened, and he completed a side kick. It was fast, accurate, and fierce. Zhou Jingquan's shoulders sank, and he swung his center of gravity again. Like a ghost, he changed his position and came to Lu Qing's right side. He tightened his arms and bent his waist again. He drew the airflow like an iron whip and whipped to Lu Qing's head. Sure enough, he was fighting with the mercurial center of gravity. If he had used the severe warning recklessly, he would have suffered a great loss. Lu Qing thought. He suddenly lowered his waist and bent his legs. He clenched his fist and swung it upward, as if he was moving or blocking. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lu Qing swung his right arm and borrowed strength. When he was about to use the 24 blizzard strikes to whip Zhou Jingquan, he found that Zhou Jingquan's center of gravity swayed and changed his direction again. This caused an irreversible interruption of his roaring gale, making it difficult for him to fight more fiercely and crazily. Zhou Jingquan flashed to Lu Cheng's back. He outlined his abdominal muscles and affected the fascia. He shot out his left arm and hit Lu Cheng's spine with a bang. This move was fast and compact. It was the continuation of fly-fall punch. Lu Cheng swung his waist and back. He swung his elbow sideways. The air burst and made a crisp sound. After the fist and elbow hit, Zhou Jingquan's back muscles bulged. He rushed his right hand and made another move without leaving any gap. Bang! 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 They kept colliding in the small space. Lu Qing resisted Zhou Jingquan's continuous attacks with the 24 blizzard strikes that he couldn't continue. Although he was not in a precarious situation due to the experience of the last fight, in such a situation, not to mention preparing severe warning, he did not even have the chance to use frost force and tremor punch. Lu Qing seized the opportunity. After blocking Zhou Jingquan's crushing punch with his raised arm, he suddenly turned his waist and back. He opened all his muscles and joints and sent out a violent swing force. He wanted to use the same trick he had used the last time. He wanted to use the swing force to create a short time for him to tighten and compress his muscles to throw the tremor punch. Once Zhou Jingquan's body was shaken, he would have to stop it with a hum or a force concentration. That would be his chance to give his enemy a severe warning. However, Zhou Jingquan didn't force the swing this time. He flew to the side, which made Lu Cheng's tremor punch lose its target. He bent and straightened his leg, and his strength burst out, shattering the bricks. His body pounced out, chasing after his prey like a goshawk. He adjusted his muscles, and once again prepared for the prelude to the severe warning. Bang! 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 Every step he took was a piece of black brick, and his momentum was extremely fierce. Zhou Jingquan, on the other hand, seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He kept retreating like flowing water and moving clouds. From time to time, he would change his direction with mercurial balance, like a butterfly dancing on the field. One chased and the other retreated. They almost went around the field, but the distance between them didn't change. At this time, Lu Cheng's body couldn't maintain the corresponding changes of the severe warning. He could only let go of his preparation and let his momentum weaken. It was because of this weakness that Zhou Jingquan's legs suddenly stopped. All of the kinetic energy was accumulated in his muscles and fascia. Crack! The bricks under his feet cracked. In his mind, he visualized a rising water flow and a fierce waterfall hitting the ground. Taking advantage of Lu Cheng's momentary change in qi, he pulled back his arm and threw out a punch like a bolt of lightning. Like a bomb bombardment, he launched a mighty blow. Fly-fall punch, waterfall. Lu Qing forced himself to take a deep breath, and the image of a thundercloud appeared in his mind. The corresponding muscles tightened quickly, and he raised his left foot, twisted his waist, and smashed out with his right arm as if he was holding a huge hammer. Bang! The thunderclouds exploded in Lu Cheng's mind. His two fists froze in the air. Circles of invisible ripples rippled out rapidly. Both of them felt that their muscles and fascia were trembling, their internal organs were shaking, and their breath and blood were boiling. They couldn't exert force for a short time. His abdominal muscles wriggled along with his internal organs. Lu Cheng's body produced a thunderous sound, which echoed Zhou Jingquan's throat. Both of them made a reverse vibration with their inner practice at the same time. They offset most of the effects and recovered at the same time. Zhou Jingquan swayed his center of gravity again and launched the fly-fall punch, continuation. Once Lu Qing borrowed 2 or 3 times, he would change the rhythm skillfully and make his opponent unable to follow up. I can't be led by the nose. After fighting for a while, Lu Qing decided to take the initiative to create an opportunity to launch the severe warning. When Zhou Jingquan once again circled behind him with his mercurial balance, he suddenly exerted his strength, flicked his waist and back, and pounced forward. It seemed that he was trying to distance himself from Zhou Jingquan and get rid of the fly-fall punch. Thump, thump, thump. Lu Qing listened to the footsteps behind him and began to adjust his muscles and fascia. Once his opponent approached him, he would immediately launch a counterattack. Crack. He stepped on the ground and broke the black bricks. He turned around and was about to pounce on his opponent while visualizing the falling sun ice thunder to launch a well-prepared attack. However, when he turned around, he was stunned. Zhou Jingquan kept a good distance from him so that he couldn't follow up with another attack. Otherwise, his opponent would have plenty of time to dodge. Zhou Jingquan found Lu Qing was stunned. He smiled and crooked his finger, like a cat playing with a mouse. This was a naked provocation and contempt, which made the audience and Yan Shaoling, who was watching the live broadcast, so angry that their chests almost exploded. Damn it! Lu Qing's anger rose in his heart, but he soon calmed down because of Ho Yu's example. He caught the key point in a flash. Zhou Jingquan was deliberately provoking him. Why did he do that? Did he want me to take the initiative to attack and take the initiative to try? As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Qing immediately came to a realization. Why would I painstakingly create an opportunity to use severe warning? As long as he waited patiently, this opportunity would definitely appear. Because in Zhou Jingquan's eyes, my physical strength was so abnormal that it was almost limitless. But he had just completed the Dan stage triple explosion in the battle with Lin Ke, so his body was declining in all aspects. If he continued to suppress me with continuous, he was afraid that before I showed any flaws, he would be exhausted and even lose the ability to burst out his full strength once or twice. Therefore, his continuous attacks just now were just to provoke me so that I would find an opportunity to take the initiative to counterattack. Once I failed 3 times in a row and reached a low point, it would be time for him to erupt with all his strength and try to win. He was a little anxious before and thought that he had mastered the killer move, so he almost made a mistake. Facing Zhou Jingquan's provocation, Lu Qing put on a stable stance and waved to his opponent. Come on. Let's compete in physical strength. Chapter 219. Of course, Zhou Jingquan was not stupid enough to compete with Lu Qing in terms of physical strength. This was the truth that the previous martyrs had proved with their own honor and disgrace. He was not that stubborn to confirm it himself. Sometimes, people had to believe in evil. At first, he was sensitive enough to notice that Lu Qing was trying to end the fight quickly, so he planned to weaken his opponent's momentum bit by bit. When the time was right, he would immediately burst out and win with all his strength. Now that he saw Lu Qing calm down and assume a steady defense, his heart skipped a beat. He knew that his plan A was completely ruined and could no longer be realized. He could only try the plan B prepared before the fight. If so, my image will be ruined. Zhou Jingquan arched his back and dashed forward like a bolt of lightning. When he was close to Lu Qing, he swayed his center of gravity and slid to Lu Qing's side as if he was treading on water. He twisted his waist and shoulder, twisted his whole body's strength, and punched his right arm diagonally. He performed the surge of fly-fall punch. Bam! Lu Qing's right arm tightened and swung sideways. Like an iron whip, it exploded the air. Even if it was a stone in front of him, it could be smashed into pieces. Bang! In the muffled sound, Lu Qing's body swayed a bit, while Zhou Jingquan moved away and repeated the pattern just now. Bam, 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 bam. They kept fighting and separating. Fly-fall punches, continuous, and 24 blizzard strikes showed their strengths. Everything was like a reenactment of the previous story. However, Lu Qing, who had calmed down, was very clear that the essence was different. The one who was looking for an opportunity impatiently was not himself but Zhou Jingquan. He patiently defended and assumed a posture to compete with physical strength consumption. At the same time, he was ready to face Zhou Jingxuan's full outbreak. At the climax of the battle, Zhou Jingquan gradually gained the upper hand in this kind of close-range fight where he couldn't use his feet to exert force. Lu Cheng was firmly suppressed, and Lu Cheng cooperated with this process, waiting for changes to appear. Bam! After Zhou Jingxuan's low kick failed, he hit Lu Cheng's arm with a single whip. Lu Cheng lowered his center of gravity and suddenly turned his waist and back. His joints and muscles were all opened, and again a strong, swing force was released. He knew that Zhou Jingquan would not let go of this opportunity. Zhou Jingxuan's upper body swayed to the side. Just as he was about to be flung away, his qi and blood suddenly flowed back and gathered in his dantian, making him as steady as Mount Tai, not moving an inch. Amazing! Compared to exerting strength in both feet, borrowing the force to swing back, who knew how much more brilliant it was? Lu Cheng praised in his mind. But he had already seized the short time to compress the corresponding muscles and fascia of his arms and visualize rolling thunderclouds. Then he suddenly pushed his left foot inwards, straightened his back, and clasped his hands together. In a manner that could split mountains and rocks, he slammed it diagonally from the top right to the bottom left. Mountain-shattering quake. Kacha, a spider web appeared at his feet. In Zhou Jingxuan's mind, there was the image of a waterfall pouring down from a towering mountain, the torrent violently crashing against the ground, and the spray of water splashing into the air. The condensed point in his dantian exploded with a bang. All of the power converged into one and gushed out fiercely, causing his arm to draw into a bow and his fist to turn into a hammer. Pa! Zhou Jingxuan's whole body seemed to expand. He shot out his right fist in a condescending manner, penetrating through layers of air. Fly fall punch, waterfall. Bang! A muffled thunder sounded in the arena, shaking the cheers of the audience to a halt. Invisible ripples turned into a gust of wind, blowing in all directions from the place where Lu Cheng and Zhou Jingquan clashed. Lu Cheng's body jumped a little, his ears were ringing, his eyes were dizzy, and his qi and blood were tumbling. It seemed that he could not bear the full power of the dance stage and had to take a step back. One step was not enough. 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. At the same time, his abdomen wriggled and his body emitted a thunderous sound, counteracting the shock caused by the impact of the waterfall. Zhou Jingquan, who was hit by the mountain-shattering quake of Thunder War Zen, was not in a good condition either. Every bone and every joint in his body was shaking, and every inch of his tendons and flesh was rippling. Seeing that Lu Cheng was retreating after the head-on collision, Zhou Jingquan was unable to catch up with him and seize the opportunity to win. Such a scene was exactly what Lu Cheng had expected. After taking 4 steps back, he eliminated the shock and dissolved the majestic power of the dance stage explosion. He began to adjust the corresponding parts of his body, preparing to stomp on the ground and take the initiative to counterattack. Severe warning. At this moment, the trembling of Zhou Jingxuan's body, the tumbling of his body, and the paleness of his face suddenly gathered together with his qi, blood, and mental strength to form a human body Big Dan. In the live broadcast room of Songqing TV station, Ganla blurted out, "Double explosion." After completing the triple explosion of the dance stage, Zhou Jingquan could still make another double explosion. Yan Shaoling, Brahman, and the rest of the audience, who had just heard the horror of the triple explosion of the dance stage from the commentator, held their breaths and felt inexplicably uneasy. According to last week's competition and the previous video, everyone guessed that Zhou Jingquan could still complete the dance stage explosion 2 or 3 times without any injury. But no one expected that he could make another double explosion. Brahman, Ganlu, Yanzhika, and Lu Cheng did not expect this. When he saw Zhou Jingxuan's force concentration, he had only completed half of the preparation for the severe warning. It was too late. Lu Cheng made a prompt decision and stopped the follow-up. He slightly adjusted the change of his body and changed it to the prerequisite of the frost force. Fortunately, the severe warning, was a combination of the frost force. The two had too many similarities in the corresponding state of the bones, muscles, and viscera. The former was more complicated, while the latter was relatively simpler, which was suitable for Lu Qing to complete quickly. Boom! When pressed to the extreme, it could also explode to the extreme. The Dan in Zhou Jingxuan's body exploded, and all the accumulated strength in his body surged out, making him a little taller and more powerful. He caught up with Lu Qing in one leap, raised his right hand high, and turned it into a waterfall, surging down. The turbid river in Lu Qing's mind suddenly froze and froze inch by inch. Its rolling posture became a still picture. The cold current in his body turned into a tide. Lu Qing put his feet together, twisted his waist, and bounced his right arm, clenched his fist, and punched upward. Rocket-propelled cannon, frost force. Bang! Lu Qing's body suddenly became shorter, and his feet sank into the bluestone a little. His qi and blood surged crazily, triggering the previous shock, shaking his viscera, muscles, and tendons. He almost tasted something sweet in his throat, which made him feel sick and uncomfortable. Unable to do anything, he could only roll back along with the majesty of the waterfall to dissolve the remaining force and avoid fractures or internal injuries. And Zhou Jingxuan's fist was covered with a layer of white frost. Part of the cold current was dispersed, but part of it poured into his body and quickly spread to his whole body. He couldn't help but shiver and stiffen his muscles. If his body was still in the same condition as before, he would naturally be able to quickly beat his heart, surge his blood, and dissolve the ice. But after forcibly completing 2 successive strikes, he was almost exhausted. Moreover, he was hit by a mountain-shattering quake, which made his viscera uncomfortable. For a short time, he actually stayed there and couldn't catch up with Lu Qing, who had lost his center of gravity and lost his stance. Thump. 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 Everyone was praying for Lu Qing in silence, hoping that he could stand up first. Yan Jika couldn't sit still anymore. She stood up from her seat and looked at the arena with concern and anxiety. Thump. Lu Qing's vibration was slightly relieved. He immediately jumped up like a carp and stood up. Li Liantong, Fan Yanxi, and the rest of the audience instinctively cheered, but they saw Zhou Jingquan move. His lips were pale, and he stepped on the black bricks and pounced on Lu Qing. Again, he visualized the power of the waterfall and raised his right arm. Bam! He clenched his fist and chopped down. Waterfall of fly-fall punch. Lu Qing's feet were still shaking, so he didn't have time to dodge. He could only gather his remaining strength and tighten the muscles of his hands, wrists, forearms, and upper arms to visualize the flashing silver-white thundercloud. Thump. He didn't show any weakness and punched upward. Thunder Roar Zen. Bang! As soon as the two touched, he immediately exploded the tight part, which made a short but strong impact. Thump. Lu Qing and Zhou Jingquan stepped back at the same time. When their feet landed, they were both floating. Their bodies were obviously trembling, and their eyes were blank. Thump. Humph. Both of them recovered at the same time. Zhou Jingquan gathered his strength again, twisted his waist and back, and stretched out his arms to hit the waterfall of fly-fall punch again. When two rivals meet on a narrow road, the brave wins. Lu Qing knew he couldn't dodge at this time. He also visualized the thundercloud, compressed the corresponding fascia and muscles, and hit the sky rocket cannon with Thunder Roar Zen as the base. Bang! Both of them were shocked and felt so disgusted that they wanted to vomit. They felt that every part of their bodies was trembling, as if they had lost control of their bodies in a short time. Thump. Lu Qing recovered a little from the thunder in his abdomen. He didn't make any adjustments, but swung his left arm and hit the Thunder Roar Zen again. Zhou Jingquan was obviously a little slower. He could only barely raise his arms to block the attack. Bang! His body jumped a little, and his arms became soft and weak. Is he exhausted? Lu Qing didn't want to show mercy. He shook his right shoulder and hit the thunder roar zen again. Bang! Zhou Jingquan was like being hit by a bomb. After blocking the attack, he fell to the ground. He curled up his body and kept retching. If he continued to fight, he would have internal bleeding. The referee raised his right hand and calmly shouted, "Round 3, Lu Qing wins." Seeing the scene of Zhou Jingquan falling to the ground and hearing the referee's announcement, Huan Fan, Yan Shaoling, and the others in front of the computer, as well as Li Liantong, Fan Yanxi, and the other audience members in the scene, all let out a sigh of relief. Lu Cheng. While cheering, they were shocked to see Lu Qing bend over and retch with a painful expression. Obviously, he was not relaxed. Yan Jika's heart was in her mouth again. At this time, Lu Qing, who felt uncomfortable all over, was a little confused. How could this battle be more difficult and dangerous than he expected? Not only did he not find a chance to hit the severe warning, but he also left a strong impact. Although he won, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Even if Zhou Jingquan could hit the double combo again, it shouldn't be like this. When he thought of severe warning, he suddenly had an epiphany. He remembered the various problems he had exposed when he used this move. He also remembered the few words his master had said to him. Do you think Zhou Jingquan will stand there like a wooden stake and wait for you to prepare the severe warning? Wait for you to meet force with force? Even your frost force needs a short period of time to complete, let alone the severe warning that you just learned. If you really put your hope on this move, you will be like a 3-year-old child holding a 1,000-pound hammer. Not only will you not hit the enemy, but you will also hurt yourself easily. The purpose of practicing severe warning is not to master it, but to use it to further master Frost Force and Thunder Roar Zen. This is what you have to fight against Zhou Jingquan. That's right. Back then, I clearly felt that it made a lot of sense. But when I thought about the unity of opposites, I ignored those words and focused all my attention on mastering and using severe warning. Geezer Sure in the home team's seat sighed and said to himself, I was like this in the past. It was hard to forget oneself. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.